Welcome back, everyone, to the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is episode 107. We're just going live on Facebook, so make sure you share it and invite all your friends and family and people you don't know to tune in as well. Share it to groups. I'm about to do that. I want to welcome our guests, though. Before I do that, we have Mark and Becca Buskirk from Rolling Barrel Tours, and among other things. But, I mean, that's the main thing we're going about tonight, right? And I do like the embroidery. Got that probably on everything now, which is amazing. I realize I don't have my T-shirt on, but you can't see it anyways because we are in the garage, and I do have a cool T-shirt from you guys from the last time you were on. Becca's been here before, and we're happy to have him back. I want to have Nate, if you would, while I share this, go ahead and talk about our sponsors to the Facebook people out there while I do this.
Yeah, so our primary sponsor tonight is Tinderbox at Easton Town Center in Columbus, Ohio. They're providing our featured cigar this evening, and that's going to be the Fuente Don Carlos. So now, between now and the end of next Tuesday when we close up the shop, that cigar is going to be 15% off. So you can either come in and get a stick if you mention the podcast for 15% off, or you can call in and get 15% off, minimum $5 for us to ship that out to you. And then our other sponsor is going to be Altadis USA, and they are providing our second cigar this evening, which is going to be one of our favorites and also a great bang-for-buck cigar, and that's the H. Upman Nicaragua. That's by A.J. Fernandez. So great collaboration there. We love that cigar. It's a big seller, very popular. We're smoking the Robusto, which I believe comes in at $7.95 at our store, so absolutely killer smoke. And then we also want to thank the BS Cigar Company. We are getting closer and closer to the days of getting the silver back and the new gold. We actually still have some silvers, but only in the big size. So we're looking forward to getting some more Rubitos and Toros in, and then interested to try the new gold. I actually brought an old BS Gold with me tonight, not just to rub it in. And then don't forget to like, share. Feel free to comment throughout the night. Leave us a review. Check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/bourbonandbs. You can donate as little as you want, as much as you want. Steve likes to set a cap though at $1 million, but you know,
whatever you want.
Yeah, we'll take whatever.
We'll
take whatever. So that's definitely helping out, especially with some of the things we have looking forward into the rest of the year. Some possible updates coming up. We also got some tiers that we're looking at doing and some swag gifts, possibly some etched glasses or shirts. So anyone who is a member of the Patreon already, they will get some of that stuff as soon as we launch all the tiers and have that stuff available. So if you are watching live tonight, go ahead and leave a comment. Tell us what you're smoking. Tell us what you're drinking, as long as you're not driving. You can smoke and drive. Don't drink and drive.
Whatever you want to tell us.
Well, I mean, you can
You
do
a
it.
cop?
No.
No.
I just don't want you to get in trouble.
I agree.
Okay. Go ahead, Steve.
Good PSA there.
Yeah.
You know. Also, don't do drugs, right?
Okay.
Unless it's legal. Let's go ahead and get started here.
On that note?
You know. Welcome back, everyone, to the Bourbon and BS podcast, episode 107. We have some special guests here, one returning, one new. And we have a good Facebook Live audience already started, along with this live studio audience in the garage. I have Mark and Becca Buskirk from Rolling Barrel Tours. And so I'm gonna be up front with this. This is, I would say, the first time that we are on camera here, and I'm the only one that's going to be smoking a cigar. So that being said, I do have Nate, for those of you listening to the audio and you're not watching, but I mean, regardless, Nate Hale is going to be behind the board and the computer back there and answering some of the Facebook stuff as well, but he is going to give me a little bit of support and second-hand, I guess, review here of the cigar we're featuring tonight, which is from our sponsor, Tinderbox at Easton, Don Carlos from Fuente. It's double Robusto size. Fantastic cigar. Between now and the next episode, next Wednesday, it is going to be 15% off at the Tinderbox at Easton. We can ship it out to you with a 5-cigar minimum, or we can just sell you one if you guys stop in. But it's a fantastic cigar. We're going to talk about that briefly here in the first part of this podcast. Also, Altadis USA for providing us a second cigar this week. Our second cigar from them is the H. Upman Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez, which we've talked about before on the show, and we love this cigar. So definitely check that one out as well. And then also the BS Cigar Company for the continued support. If you were watching on the Facebook Live, you would know this already, and I definitely encourage you guys to check it out if you're listening to the audio. If you're free on Wednesday nights every week, we are going to be doing a live broadcast where you can be a part of the conversation. So I do like Matthew Stiles, speaking of which, he is episode 107, and he is drinking 107. So Weller Antique 107. We should have done that. He is way more clever than we are. Damn it. But, yeah, so I want to thank all our sponsors. Also, our Patreon page. We've got support coming in, which I really, really appreciate. So we even had someone that donated or contributed on the Patreon page and then basically canceled after that to do a one-time donation. So that's a way you guys can always do that, which I really like. And I also want to thank a special shout-out to Bobby Hirschman, who just shared this on Facebook, for sending us some T-shirts and also a contribution to go towards all of our stuff. Appreciate it. He said, hey, man, I need a physical address. I'm a Philly boy. I don't believe in Venmo or Patreon or whatever you guys call it. I need to send you something that I feel I can trust, which is UPS. And he did. So thank you very much, Bobby. That's awesome. Fantastic. I will not share exactly what all you sent us except for some awesome T-shirts. I want to say it's from your other business, which I've been seeing on Facebook. So that's fantastic. We'll give you a shout-out here with I'll wear that shirt in an episode when we can actually wear T-shirts and not freeze. So I want to thank you guys for being here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A lot has changed, I know, since it was episode 67 was the last one you were on. I know. Wow. Yeah. May of last year.
Yeah.
So a few things have changed. I want to give you guys an opportunity to kind of talk about what you're doing. And like I said, the cigar we're going to go over tonight, the Fuente, we'll definitely talk about it. So for all you cigar lovers out there, we are going to still talk about cigar. But we do have an opportunity to have a very unique pair of people on here, which I'm really looking forward to having this conversation, because what you guys are doing, from what I understand, and even how it was before, but even more now, you know, Becca and I had a conversation on the phone last week, and she's just rallying off, like, so we're doing this, we're working on this, we're doing this, like, hey, what do you think about this? I mean, the level of energy that you guys are putting into this business is astounding, which I love. I absolutely love it. So, and you guys brought, and we'll tell you guys a little bit about this, why we're doing this one tonight, but the E.H. Taylor small batch.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which is something that is very much a tie-in for you guys. So tell us a little about, introduce yourselves, talk to us about the business that you started just over a year ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well,
because it was really fresh when we spoke last.
We'll be a year old in March.
A year old in March, yeah. So
a year old in March, yeah.
You were just, starting off like by a month or two.
Yeah.
When we first spoke.
And we've gone through some ups and downs and some growing pains, and finally starting to get our niche.
Good.
Starting to like really work into what we're good at and what we do well, and building up our clientele. So it's been really great.
So when we first spoke about this last year, you were based out of where?
Mount Vernon.
Mount Vernon. So just north of Columbus, Ohio. And you guys the design of it was, if I'm not mistaken, that you were going to be bussing people down and promoting the Bourbon Trail, but basically it's like an all-inclusive trip, right? So the whole thing would be, hey, we're going to load you up, your group, whatever. You can join other groups. Tell us when you're interested. We can get you down there. What do you want to see? Who do you want to talk to? What distilleries, whiskeys, all that stuff. And we'll do all that for you. Set up lodging, everything.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's what we started out doing, and also doing some tours here in Ohio, wine tours, brewery tours, things like that.
Okay.
And then as we've kind of found our market, we was looking at most people like to travel, if they was wanting to do the Bourbon Trail, to actually drive themselves to Kentucky and start it there.
Right.
And that gives them the freedom to kind of make their weekend or their week the way they want it. And then
If they're driving,
rather than riding with us down and us back for 4 hours or 3 hours. So we kind of changed our model that way, and it seems to be working out very well.
Okay. So what do it mean? Like, when did that change? When was the decision be like, hey, we're not going to do just this anymore. We're going to actually go down there?
It happened about July.
Okay.
An opportunity arose for us to move our company to Frankfurt. We had been going to Frankfurt for about 7 years, and an opportunity arose. Frankfurt Tourism was very much looking for a tour company to come into the city.
Yeah.
And it just happened to be the right time, the right moment, and we agreed. We weren't making much traction trying to do an all-inclusive. One thing in hindsight, we realized having it so prepackaged, and people didn't really respond well to that. I mean,
They wanted more flexibility?
More flexibility.
Yeah, which you weren't super strict. I mean, you were just trying to cater to what you thought. Okay.
To what I thought the market would want, and then also making it all-inclusive. And then, like he said, having to be with us the entire time. So that didn't really work out. One, the cost was just so high. It did really drive up the cost. So that having to pay, an all-inclusive rate for hotel accommodations.
I think that might be sticker shock, though. Right? I mean, because all-inclusive, I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong, but, like, one of the nice things about all-inclusive is just it's all at once, though. It's like, all right, so, but when you start, you can justify things more when it's like, well, all right, we're going to drive, and then, okay, let's find an Airbnb, or let's find a hotel or whatever, and then, like, that's one charge. And then when it's all said and done, you're spending the money.
Right.
But it's not just one check or one charge.
One
sticker
big
shock.
lump sum.
Yeah.
Exactly, sticker shock.
Yeah.
Like, all at once.
Right.
But one thing, the definite advantage to us moving down to Central Kentucky has been we've become an international company now.
Explain that, yeah.
Our clients are flying in. We pick them up from Louisville Airport, and then they can drive. They could drive in, but it's opened us up to a larger, broader market because of that. Previously, we were kind of focused on the Central Ohio market.
Pulling people out of here.
Correct. Yep. But now we can pretty much do anything for anybody, no matter where they're located.
Right.
So we've had clients from California, Arizona, Chicago, New York, North Carolina. We have some gentlemen coming up from South Carolina in April. So, we're having a bigger reach and a broader reach. Plus,
people already know where to go for all this, right?
Exactly. They know where to go, but I don't think everyone knows how to do it.
It's like a tour guide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a travel agent.
Yeah.
But we just do bourbon. Now we do talk about cigars.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple cigar companies, cigar lounges that we work with that can do educational
Down in the
as
area.
well. Yeah. Couple great places in Frankfurt and Lexington. And they will give you an educational on how this pairs with this. I mean, kind of like what you do.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. So they also have their own barrel picks, and they'll include those barrel picks in their cigar pairing. But it's more of a direct educational experience.
Yeah.
Which is how our company has really turned anyway. We do a lot more educating than like, woohoo, let's go get on the party bus and go drink bourbon all day.
Let's go get hammered.
Right.
So take me back, because not everyone listened to maybe episode 67.
Right.
But either of you guys, like, what got you into this? I know, certification already with you, Becca, right, with being a bourbon steward now.
Correct.
And where did you guys get this idea? Give me a quick, just give me a review here.
Let me go through it.
You go through it. Yeah.
All right. Well, when we first, we was kind of looking for something, other than something new, and
because you guys are in other businesses already going, right?
I have a trucking company and do that thing through the summertime, and so we was looking for something else. And Becca was kind of really looking for something as far as maybe hospitality, maybe a bistro restaurant or something like that.
Okay.
And so we started looking around for something that might fit.
Yeah.
And we've always gone down to Frankfurt and
You're good.
Gone down to Frankfurt for how many years now? About 7 years. So my cousin lives there, and we have family in Kentucky as well.
Okay.
So we started going down, visited with him right there in Frankfurt. Took a tour of the distillery, and then
Which
we
distillery?
went to Buffalo Trace.
Yep.
And also we went to a lot of the wineries in the area as well, and found out it was just a beautiful, beautiful area. And so we would go down every few months if we could, and just get away, for a nice weekend. And so as me and Becca was dating, and we decided to get married, we ended up getting married in Frankfurt at a Liberty Hall.
Nice.
Right in town. Had a kind of a destination wedding where I had all of our family and those that lived in Kentucky there as well. And as we've been going down back and forth, we was kind of looking and seeing how much bourbon industry has grown and the tourism has grown.
Yeah.
And so you kind of, when you're looking at all these tour vans and people are fluttering in,
piling in.
Yeah. Five years ago, you had maybe a gift shop that was very small, and you seen a few people coming in and out, and doing a few tours here and there. But now you look at it, and it's escalated into having restaurants and having
insane.
Actually having cocktails at the distillery, all the tours, and then all the people going. We see that the tourism has been really growing. And so when we was looking at the aspect of having a hospitality business, and then we're looking at, well, I do trucking, so what's the best way to put that together is to start a tour company.
And it's like our little joke, because I spent 24 years in the restaurants and bar industry.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And so we joke about, this is what happens when an old bartender and an old trucker get together.
Among other things, yeah.
Among other things.
Yeah, among other things.
Exactly.
I've seen that movie.
So that's kind of how it's escalated out.
Yeah.
And so when we and then come up with the idea, well, why not? Why not try this? And it's such a growing industry. We did a little homework, of course. You go down and you visit the distilleries and see how things are done. And then as you grow into a business, you find your own niche. I think that's what we have done. We're looking at a lot more on the history and the people behind the distilleries and the bourbon. And actually, it's very fascinating because there's so much there. There's so many different stories. Different distilleries have their own stories.
Yeah.
And we really enjoy showing people when we take them there all this experience. And that's what we're really into, is the experience and the education of it.
Yeah. It's funny, Eric, who owns some Airbnbs down there, he's throwing out some he's dropping knowledge on this thing, but he said Buffalo Trace does 293,000 people on tours.
That's great.
And he says it's Napa of the East Coast, literally 1 million visitors more each year. And it's interesting when he says that, because last time, Becca, you were on, you had mentioned that there was a lot of training going on with a lot of distilleries, that they were sending people out to Napa to the wineries. Is that right?
They had said that they send a lot of marketing and people like that
Correct.
out to Napa to see how they keep the people there and what they do
to handle this boom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it is really, really kind of getting that kind of little bit of a feel, but it's still bourbon. So it's bourbon.
And Buffalo Trace, I think I just read, was a 34% increase in their visitors from last year to this year. 34%.
That's a heck of a bump.
That's probably just the people going down there hoping to get Blanton's.
True enough. Not a bad business model there either.
Just in the gift shop.
But they are going through another expansion. So
Buffalo Traces?
They are.
Really?
Yes.
They have to at this point. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. All right, so before we get too much further into that, because the topic tonight for part 2 is called Adapt or Die, which sounds pretty extreme, and I feel like when I text you that, Becky, you're like, wait, no. Let's change that. But I was like, nah, I think it'll be good. But with E.H. Taylor being our special bottle this week, and I can't remember if we've done this bottle before or not on a podcast. It would have been way back, the small batch. I can't remember. But tell me a little bit about this bottle and why we're doing it, if you guys don't mind.
Why don't you start off?
Mark says, why don't you go?
You go.
All right. So there is a little story as to why we chose this bottle tonight. With our company, with Rolling Barrel Tours, we did kind of hit a very niche market as far as the history goes. We're really starting to tie that historical factor into our tours, giving you a little bit more than just like the average distillery tour. And our tour guides, and they are Kentuckians.
Mm-hmm.
They've known the area. Our newest tour guide, he actually comes to us from way back when Four Roses used to be Old Joe.
Okay.
I think it was like maybe great-great-grandfather was the master distiller there.
Wow.
So he comes with a lot of bourbon knowledge and a lot of interesting facts about the area.
Yeah.
And he's been a wonderful addition to our company. But so I got introduced. I work a lot in Frankfurt, too. I sit on a couple committees down there, primarily in tourism. Mm-hmm. And I kind of like ran this idea by tourism about maybe having something that's a little bit more focused on the history, because we have an amazing amount of history in the area. And so much of that bourbon history really ties into central Kentucky and to the Frankfurt, Millville kind of area. We started diving more into the families. Mm-hmm. And so it was going from like Graham and LeBreau, the Crows, Pepper, E.H. Taylor, and then Stagg.
Okay.
So we met a gentleman. He's a bourbon historian. He's just absolutely wonderful. I mean, he says we're like two little girls when we get together.
How does that make you feel?
With them together, very uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable.
No, actually, it's great. I'll let you continue. But,
I will. Funny. So he has come on to our team for a tour that we will be releasing in April. And he is going to be our E.H. Taylor. He is a E.H. Taylor reenactor.
That's the hat I'm looking at on here.
That's the hat.
Okay. That's the reason for those of you on Facebook Live right now. That's the hat significance here. It's also seen on the bottle itself.
And he's going to come in, and our tour is going to be called Riding with Taylor.
Love it.
And on this tour, you will get to sit with him, and then we'll go to different E.H. Taylor sites, all up and down the back roads as well, back to his horse farm, to his first sites, and all the way down to, we'll go to Castle and Key, too, which would have been his last distillery. Mm-hmm. And so he'll sit there, and you ask him questions. It's going to be very much like if you went to like a historical venue like Williamsburg. Yeah. He will be in first person telling you stories about his life.
With the hat on.
With the hat on.
Of course.
Full dress. I mean, the whole pocket watch, everything.
Yeah.
And it's going to be amazing. I mean, I am so excited about this tour. Actually, him and my tour coordinator have been primarily working on it. And I haven't even gotten to see it yet. Okay, I haven't gotten to see it yet, and they're not going to let me see the tour until they do like 2 or 3 run-throughs on it. And what's really special about this tour is at the end, we actually go to Frankfurt Cemetery. Okay. To E.H. Taylor's grave, where you will also get to enjoy a pour of E.H. Taylor small batch in honor of the legend.
I like that.
Yeah. So you'll get to toast him, and we're going to have a little bit of a dramatic effect when we get up there with the current R.E.H. Taylor. But yeah.
We can't get into too many details.
I cannot. Actually, I've already
classified.
been told. I've been told that.
All right, erase the whole thing. Let's start over.
Yeah. I already had a conversation.
Yeah.
No, my tour coordinator, she's been like putting herself. She's just an amateur. She's wonderful too, and she's done like this entire E.H. Taylor. Oh my gosh! I mean, it's like a book. It could be a book. And she's like, "Don't be giving it all away tonight." She's like,
"We won't."
So I said, "I won't." I said, "But I want to touch on it because it's really something special, and we do want to open it up. Yeah, probably about mid-March, we'll open it up to be available."
Well, Eric, who again I mentioned, Carico, he's the one that he always says if you mention the podcast, he hasn't done it tonight, but you'll get a percentage off of his Airbnbs. But he was saying, because he's down there, he says literally 1% of history is talked about in Kentucky. Most people don't experience it. And then you just said all this stuff, and he commented again. He says, "How cool, take my money, love this concept." So, I mean, I think there's definitely going to be some interest there, even with some people that are down there all the time, because they appreciate all of this stuff. Chrissy said something about, I don't know if you know this cigar shop, by the way. I want to say Executive Cigar in Simpsonville.
I'm not familiar with it, no.
So would love to be, or they'd be happy to work with you guys. So I assume Simpsonville is nearby. I don't know.
Yeah, so maybe a half hour, if that.
So you got a couple contacts you may have to go back on this feed and link up with, or if you guys are out there and you want to talk to these two at any point tonight during the podcast, or afterwards, it's Rolling Barrel Tours, a great page. You guys have a website as well. We can get into that stuff as well. But reach out if you guys want to learn more about this, or get on some waiting lists or whatever it is, because it is absolutely cool concept.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we're doing, and we're really kind of focused in on the next level bourbon drinker. So, I mean, of course, we do have plenty of tours, and we still do tours for people who are maybe beginners or newbies, and they're just learning. And we have those. I mean, we cater to all, bourbon journeys, no matter wherever you may be. Yeah. But we've got some other really cool stuff that's actually coming out. We're going to be working with, doing even some, looking at some archaeology of bourbon as well.
Really?
Yes. So that's kind of exciting. Those are all going to be rolling out in April.
Yeah.
So those will become available in April. Those, and then we also have a tour from the distiller workers' perspective.
Oh, I love it.
What I love about this one is that, oh my gosh, I don't have enough time. I'm sorry.
We got time.
But we have. Sorry.
Nate, the producers keep saying,
I know.
You get so excited. You're backing away
I
from
get
the
so excited.
microphone. It's all
I'm
right.
so sorry.
It's all right.
Anyway, so we have a gentleman. He's also another bourbon historian that we work with. We work with 3 of them.
Wow.
So that's what's really great about being in Frankfurt, because there is a ton of history right there. We got 2 really great museums. We work with the curators there as well. And then, of course, our tourism team, they're great with working with us.
Sure.
But so we have another gentleman. He's going to be doing tours from the distillery worker perspective. And he's got like the whole I would say 1930s kind of get up.
So historical, not like current day distillery worker.
But what he's going to do, what we're going to do, he's going to talk about what it was like to work for different master distillers.
Okay.
So unlike our E.H. Taylor, which is very specific on E.H. Taylor because of that tour, now you'll get to learn a little bit about Stagg. You can learn about the Shiveleys. You can learn about anybody that's come through Buffalo Trace.
Yeah.
So that's going to be another release that we'll have.
Gives a different perspective on like what you read online, or when someone kind of spits out like the history, why there is a bottle called Stagg, why George C. Stagg, why there is a bottle called Colonel E.H. Taylor. Because you can read it, there's a little blurb on the bottle. You can go online, you can do a Google search, Wikipedia, whatever, but this gives you a different perspective, which is what I love about it.
Yes.
Right. And so many of these brands that are bought and sold from different distilleries has bought the brand or changed hands. And so that's what's one interesting fact about it is how they acquired it. Maybe they acquired it during Prohibition, and then there's so many brands still probably locked up that they haven't even touched, but they bought the brand,
the name, the marketing, at this point, yeah,
right, and it's still there. It's still available for them to release maybe one day.
So you're buying a piece of history. You're buying all of that.
Yeah.
What about this bottle? I mean, so the Colonel E.H. Taylor small batch. What do we know about this bottle that we're drinking here? Do you know? I mean, as far as like, do they release the mash bill? Do they talk about the small batch at all?
Buffalo Trace does not release their mash bill.
Yeah.
However, I think the Colonel Taylor they have 3 mash bills. I think this would be. Oh my gosh, I'm not that great at them.
That's all right. I just know with E.H. Taylor, so one of my favorites. So I like the small batch. I like the straight rye a lot. It's one of my favorite ryes. Yeah. Absolutely, hands down, one of my favorite ryes. And then you have the what's the other one? Well, you have the single
wheats.
Barrel.
Oh, the E.H. Taylor is the single barrel, yeah.
And then I've got what's left of a uncut and unfiltered inside. And then there's I don't even know how to say it. Grain of the Gods. There's a lot of the smaller releases as well.
4 grains,
Yep.
Amaranth.
The Amaranth, yeah. Jake, who used to be the co-host, who's still part of the community and everything else, he was posting a picture over at Burn Lounge where he's like, I love Delivery Day, and it was the one you just mentioned, the Amaranth. Yeah, he just got a bottle of that at the Burn Lounge. Yeah, he's
That's a tough one to find.
Yeah, he's got some success out in Indianapolis right now.
Yeah, and they got barrel proof too.
Barrel proof, that's what I was thinking.
Now what I do know
that was the uncut, unfiltered barrel proof. Yeah.
It is from their low rye mash bill. I think this only has somewhere between 8 and 12%.
What was that? Okay. What do you guys think of this? What are you getting out of this? I mean, you're a bourbon steward, right? I mean, I'm going to trump up your title here.
Okay. All right.
Mark, do you have a title, or you just drink a lot of bourbon and know the history?
I drive the truck. No, I'm a bourbon steward as well. But
I'm the limo driver.
Yeah, that's right. But no, we've went both to the Moonshine University but yeah, we took the course, and very educational. Have you learn a lot about how it's made.
Yeah.
And there's sensory tests or sensory kit where you start to learn what you're tasting through sense of smell.
Okay.
And so it's a great experience. It's pretty much an all day class, and you come out when you come out where you can actually certify other people to be stewards as well.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do have the ability to do that. I can certify people. I'm an executive, so certified would be
It's a lot of power.
Not really.
It sounds like a lot of power.
No.
You can't just throw that around, you know what I mean?
No. I mean, really, if you're passionate about it and it's something that you want to do, I mean, you can go down to Louisville and you can do this. Anybody can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you learn about, like, the tasting wheel? Do you learn about, like, how to, like, I mean, like, so with this one, I mean, what are you getting out of this? I mean, I know you brought it on for kind of a different reason, but I have always enjoyed. I love Buffalo Trace stuff.
Well, what I find about this, the small batch E.H. Taylor, is that it's very palatable. Mm-hmm. I also think that it's very. I have a lineup of bourbons that I would say that's very easy for the beginner drinker, and I think this is definitely one of those. I think it's a solid. It's a bottle and bond, 100 proof. It's got a lot of those caramel, vanilla notes. A lot of those just. What I find just to be just an easy bourbon to sip.
It's enjoyable.
Actually, I could probably drink this one too fast.
Yeah. It does.
That is one thing about this one, because it is so palatable that I can probably really drink this a little faster than I want to.
Yeah,
But,
no, I can see that.
And it has a little bit of a spice at the end, just enough. But
I was going to say not much.
Not enough to give you a real good Kentucky hug, but just it's there. It's there.
Yeah. That old Kentucky hug. Jake used to say it all the time on here when he was on here. And the way he said it, though, sometimes you can say it, it comes across creepy. You did not do that. That was actually, it makes more sense when you say it. Well, he hasn't said mouthfeel yet. It's a real nice mouthfeel as you get a Kentucky hug. I mean, I feel like it's a bad weeknight, right there. So there I was, down in Kentucky.
A lot of visual.
Oh my God. Anyways, I do like this whiskey quite a bit. It is. I wouldn't say it's my favorite Buffalo Trace product, but it's like in Ohio, it's 35, right? Does that sound right? 35-ish.
$35?
Yeah.
What you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what it is when I buy it from the distillery too.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's about $35,
So
$40.
very reasonably priced. I mean, it's funny because they have so many good products, and Eagle Rare is still kind of my jam. It's for that price, around that same ballpark. I always like if I have the opportunity to buy one or the other, if I had to pick, I'm an Eagle Rare guy. I don't know why. It sits better with me. But I completely agree with what you guys are saying on this one. I mean, it does have that like kind of the caramel. It's a lot of like warm spice. I describe that as like kind of like the warm finish. You know what I mean? It's like a hint of spice. It doesn't have that kind of and maybe it's even at 100 proof.
Right. 100 proof.
It does not drink like it's got a lot of heat or anything like that. I like that the way you say it's palatable. I mean, it's very, very easy drinking.
It's you can sit back in the rocker. In
Oh,
your chair and just sip this all evening. It's real easy. But yeah, it's and then there's other ones that has a little more spice or heat to it. That if you really want to slow things down, you can have this for a couple hours if you wanted. Just kind of sip on it and just enjoy it.
Yeah,
and that'd probably be I don't know a lot about the cigars, but I could tell that that would be a very nice combination when you're
you're sitting back with us.
Just relaxing, and I could see that.
They go hand in hand. I mean, for that reason, I think, and a lot of times you will get like pairings or what have you, and with this one, I mean, it's because that's easy drinking. This cigar, and we'll get into it a little bit. Again, I know we're going to be more bourbon heavy tonight, but it's something that you got a medium bodied cigar here, so it's not real spicy or anything like that. I think there's a little sweetness to it. It actually goes fairly well with this. And Eric, who I was mentioning earlier on the feed here, he just said that he picked one up last Thursday at Buffalo Trace on the way home from work. And for anyone not in that area that doesn't live down there, that's a very envious statement right there, by the way, is that you can just swing by the distillery on the way home from work as opposed to like going to Kroger or something like that, a state liquor store here, and seeing what they might have. Exactly. But I mean, so he's getting sweet oak off of this, and I can kind of see that as well. I like that. I like that a lot.
One nice thing about like Buffalo Trace, you really don't know what they're going to set out next. It's
the distillery.
At the distillery,
Okay.
So you can wheel in there and there may not be nothing on the shelf at one point, but then you wait 10 minutes and somebody's bringing a cart out and you never know what you're going to get. It's
So that's
just one
how they
thing.
work down there.
Yeah, it's very random. We just when you're there, it's I think they kind of mixed up. I think at one point they were doing the setting out at certain times or certain days, and I think they kind of mixed that up to where it's not. Yeah. It's people can't clock.
Because they're hitting it up too frequently.
Much.
Yeah.
And so it's they put a little more random, so you just never know what you're going to get there.
I feel like you have to do that though, because if it's just like, say you guys have a tour coming through and you bring them in there and everyone's kind of excited to say like, oh, while I'm here I'm gonna pick up a bottle or 10 or whatever, and it's like you get there and the shelves are empty.
Right.
It turns people off.
Right. But
it
also,
really does.
What one thing they
Or
do
could.
But Buffalo Trace does only make it a 1 bottle limit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you have
Per
to pick
person.
one.
You can pick one. I mean,
Or is it one per label?
Technically, how it is
Yeah.
they always have Buffalo Trace, and I think with the Buffalo Trace product, you can buy as many bottles of those as you want. But then on certain days, they only release 3. So it will be Blanton's, E.H. Taylor Small Batch, or Eagle Rare. So those are the only 3
Okay.
available bourbons at the distillery. So they don't have any Weller or any
Really?
other, no.
Not in the gift shop or anything. They just have okay.
Yes. So,
None of the special like releases or anything like that.
No.
Okay.
No. So you can get so if you wanted to buy a bottle of Buffalo Trace and an E.H. Taylor, you could do that.
Yeah.
But you can only buy one Taylor.
Yeah, one
Okay.
of the special releases, they just have just one.
No, that's fair.
Per person.
That's fair.
So we split up. It's like, I don't know you. I'll get another one.
That's kind of how it is now in Ohio in a lot of stores, at least, with it. But they'll do just one. Mm-hmm. So of the ones that they know people want, I don't know for anyone that's not in Ohio, and I don't know if the state that you're in is like that, but it's just like that. I mean, but if there's E.H. Taylor, there's Eagle Rare, there's Buffalo Trace, there's Blanton's, there's I don't know the other things out there, but it's like any of the more kind of tough to find stuff now. It's like one out of all of them. You can't just buy one. It's like no, you pick one of these, and then that's get out.
Yeah,
It's
even
very
some,
exclusive.
Even some state stores that way. I've been in where you get you can't stock up. You just get one of the certain brand. But you get back online. But you can get a Weller Antique or something like that. But then you can get the 107.
Yeah.
You can grab either one and you're fine. But if you want to get 2 or 3 of the one, it kind of put a stop to that.
See, now a lot of state stores. I mean, I've been to. Say they have even special reserve Weller and 107. You can't buy a green and a red. You pick one and that's it. I mean, it's gotten that way here, and I get it to a point. I mean, obviously, it's nice that you're sharing the wealth a little bit. When people want to come in, and it's like because there are people that'll be able to go in there right when the truck gets there. Like Nate was mentioning, it's they're standing in line on truck day at a liquor store here in Ohio, and there were plenty of times where it's like, yeah, I'll take a case of this, a case of this, case of that, and then the next person in line, you're number 4 in line, and you're like, yeah, we don't have anything left.
Right.
We just sold it all. And then obviously you bring in the secondary market talk, and we've talked about it before on the show, and I mean that's what I think you're trying to help.
Yeah.
I think you're trying to help.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions for these two on the feed, definitely please do chime in as well. Eric was saying, what was he saying? He picked up some Blanton, some experimentals. It's just a place to say hi, and I like to have the tours. He likes that place. He loves Buffalo Trace, it sounds like. What's your favorite distillery so far? Are you allowed to say that? I mean, I don't want to offend anyone that you work with.
I think the thing is about having a favorite distillery is kind of like having a favorite bourbon.
Okay.
I appreciate different distilleries for different things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some things I really like about one or the other, but I can't say I have a favorite. So Buffalo Trace, that's basically in our city. That's in Frankfurt.
Right.
And, it's a beautiful property. It's got so much history. It's right there on the Kentucky River. The people there are wonderful. Guests have a wonderful time every time they go. I mean, they're coming off of those tours and they're really thrilled about
Just
them.
beaming.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's a great place. I think another one that I really do enjoy is Willett.
I was wondering if you were going to say that. It's one of the few. So I've only been down there the one time still. I think that's what it was last time you were on. Willett was one of the ones that I went to, and I'm curious. You don't hear about it as much, but the people that are like, I feel like there's diehards with Willett.
So Willett, I mean, for around here, it's
You can't get it in Ohio.
you can't get Ohio.
Yeah,
It's not distributed
they don't distribute.
here.
Yeah,
So I don't know how many people really know about it. I do know that there's plenty of bourbon connoisseurs who are familiar with Willett.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so quaint and cute. I mean, if you can call a distillery that. I mean, it is. It's just got I think it's very Southern, too. I mean,
got a
they got
hands-on type of a feel. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, they have a lot of different things that we can do there. I mean, we do cocktail classes. We can do like pairings and things like that. So those are available to do there. They have a new restaurant now.
I heard.
So that's really nice. And their bar, and they have all of their Willett family reserves that you can now try. And they're in the bar. But it's very, I find it to be, it's so small, but big enough, if that makes sense.
No, I agree completely.
But, I mean, I'm in the business, so when I walk in, there's plenty of people who know me. So, like, I go to their cafe and get a cup of coffee, and next thing I know, one of the employees are hanging out and talking to me and like, hey, and so I don't know. It's almost like going over to a friend's house for me. And it's just a really enjoyable experience. And I think for the guests it is as well, because it does have that family feel to it. It's just, like I said, it's just so small, and it's just.
When I say hands-on, I didn't, and I think it was the way you took it also, but I was referring to, it feels like it's not as industrial.
It's not.
Which the bigger ones, I mean, they're great too. I'm not taking anything away from that. It actually reminded me of when I was, and I think I said it when we went down there on the podcast, when I had recently also gone to Connecticut to the tobacco fields, and just kind of it takes it back. A step back in time, where you're actually rolling the barrels down these, like, kind of like they're not railroad tracks, but it like kind of reminds me of railroad tracks, between the rick house and everything else. And you walk in this room and you're like, it's very homey. It's not like this super advanced looking place, which I like. I mean, that's what when I say hands on, it makes me feel like every little bit of that is done, and all of them are. But I mean, it's more just like I can picture. Look around, and they're working, but not really. And it's like it seems like there's a smaller staff there.
Maybe so.
Do you know? I mean, do you know how many people?
I think there's several people there who wear hats.
Yeah.
I mean, even including their master distiller.
Yeah.
I mean, like I was told a story once that it's like nothing to go grab Drew and have him like fix something in the rick house or fix something out here, because it's just like, hey, somebody's got to do it.
Absolutely.
And I think that is how that is. It's just something's got to get done. Whoever's around does it. And so I really do like going out there. Even if I don't have much going on out there, I'll just stop by just to say hi.
And that's right by Heaven Hill, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, it's right by Heaven Hill. And Heaven Hill is another one that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness, I walk in there. There's just something about Kentucky people. I'm telling you, they remember you.
Is that right?
It's so funny because I don't get down to Bardstown as much as I like to, just because it's a little bit further for me. I'm usually more in Frankfort, Lexington, Lawrenceburg, and all that area. So I don't get to Bardstown or Louisville all that much.
Yeah.
But when I go back into those distilleries, they remember me and know exactly who I am.
That's impressive.
And I always feel like I have to like reintroduce myself because it's like, oh, I may recognize them, but they see thousands of people.
Yeah.
But I'll walk in there and like, oh my gosh, where you been? I'm like, it's like, wow.
You kind of fan out a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, I was like,
Still.
wow. Yeah, and I think it's so great because, I mean, I love that. I love that hospitality. And, they do remember you. And that's really great. But I do like that one. I like it over there. And then I do like Lux Row as well.
Lux Row? No, I'm not
Now,
been.
Lux Row is completely different, though. Lux Row is more of, if you're going to go from like Willett to Lux Row, it's more modernized.
Yeah.
It's contemporary. It's white. It's like, somebody described it to me as the hospital distillery, because it's very white and it's very clean, and then it's got a lot of stainless steel.
Feels sterile.
A little bit. Yeah. I didn't really think it did, but it does kind of have like a little bit more industrial feel.
Yeah.
But again, the staff there is wonderful.
Even in the rick houses and stuff? Or no?
Rick houses
they're all pretty modern.
Yeah, they're very modern.
Yeah.
See, I'm thinking like Willet. We were just talking about Willet. I mean, there's not sawdust, but like, like when you're walking through the barrels, I mean, it's if you lean up against something, I think you feel like you're gonna lean off of it, and you're like, hey, let me get that off you. You know what I mean? You got dust on you. You know what I mean? Which I think is accurate. That's the way it should be.
Yeah. No, you'll still get dirty out in the rick houses.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's just it's a big contrast.
It's a terrible hospital.
Yeah.
You should not be able to do that in a hospital, by the way.
It's very sterile, though.
But on the contrast, on some of these smaller distilleries, you have these, like you get the grit, you get the, where you're watching them, you're out there in it, and watching them grind the corn and putting the grains in the tub and the mash, and watching them transfer and watching them do all this work.
Yeah,
and you're kind of being a part of it. I really enjoyed some of the less industrial side of it.
Yeah, that's what I was like, hands-on again. It feels like you're a part of it. You're seeing the actual
there's a few
process.
There's a few tours like that you could take where if you want to know where that pipe goes and what it's for, them guys can tell you.
Show you.
They'll spend the time with you.
Yeah,
and that's kind of the geek end of it for me. And so when I really enjoy getting in that, and then I know one distillery in particular is Neely. And Neely, they go through the whole how they develop their yeast strain.
Really?
It's very unconventional. They take a 5-gallon bucket out into a berry patch and let natural yeast fall into it. And,
not all their yeast is done that way.
No, not all. But it's an interesting story. And then when they tell you how they got it, and then they bring it all back and grow it, and it's just some of the stuff that they had is hands on. It's really more personable, put it that way. And that's I think, as far as a small distillery, that's one of my favorites that way.
Yeah, see, I like both sides of it, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, and I need to go down there again, and I got that same Eric's such a nice guy. You guys should definitely hook up with all this stuff down there with his Airbnbs, because he's saying, you guys got to bring down people. And he's encouraging me to bring down up to 14 people. So definitely going to look to maybe do a podcast from the road if I can get some time off from after the Smoking Tent event, of course. But Nate, you had a question?
Well, I was thinking, just to kind of put into perspective a little bit your question about their favorite tours, how many different tours or different distilleries have you guys toured in Kentucky?
That's a great question.
All of them.
Yeah, just about all of them.
Which would be
quantity? Ballpark it.
We have.
She's done more than
I've done the entire Bourbon Trail except for OZ, and that's just because you're just a little far out. So
and crafts.
And I've done a lot of the craft trail as well. And yeah. Ballpark.
30, 40, 50.
Well, how many?
20.
You guys did that almost in 1 weekend.
I did 27 distilleries in 3 days. Yeah. Now, those weren't all tours or anything like that. Some of those were just going in, talking.
Yeah.
Some you can do tastings, because you don't always have to do a full tour at these distilleries. You can do a tasting. You could even be like, hey, I just want to stop in, go check out the gift shop, whatever it may be.
I was at Four Roses. It was really cool because they were having construction, so that you couldn't do the actual tour, which obviously I was a little disappointed. But then we went out to that patio area, and they took us through the tasting, and they had the chart of the 10 different, and I still really enjoyed it. I mean, the architecture is beautiful. And it was a beautiful day, which didn't hurt, you know what I mean? And it's like, we tried stuff that I've had, but then they started talking about the different things of their single barrels and the codes and all of this stuff. And just in a tasting down there, I still really enjoyed it. And we were in and out of there in maybe 30, 45 minutes. Well, hitting the gift shop and everything else. It was less than an hour. And we went on.
And that's their Taste of History tour.
Is that what it is?
Yeah,
okay.
So it's just a focus on their tasting. I think you still get to try everything they have, 4 to 5 bourbons, whatever they have at that time. And they'll go through the whole history of of Four Roses, and they can talk about that, and you can walk about, and then of course hit the gift shop. And Four Roses has the most amazing bathrooms. Don't know if you've visited those.
I don't know if I visited
but
that.
I'm going to tell you right now, all the that just sticks
why?
They're just they're
pretty?
so they're just so pretty.
Which is the important part of the bathroom.
I don't know what the men's room looks like, but the ladies' room
it's pretty too.
Very pretty.
Women's rooms, first of all, ladies' rooms are always nicer. I feel like there's always like a couch in a ladies' room for some reason. I don't know what you guys are doing.
And we get like lotion, and they.
That's
and,
cool.
And
explain the couch to me though. I don't get it.
That's why they're in there for so long.
Because of the couch?
Because we gotta go there and talk. We're like, hey, it's like, hey, we gotta go to the bathroom. I'm like, oh, okay. So we go in there and.
Because you always go together.
We do go together.
Yeah, so you need I get it. You need a couch.
Yeah, so we need a couch. We're going to hang out in there for a few minutes.
You don't need a couch in a bathroom.
No.
And in a men's room, by the way, you would not want to sit on said couch.
Probably not.
Exactly. Yeah, everyone's like, yeah, no, absolutely not. So before we go down, do you have any other questions, Nate?
Steve, how many tours have you done?
I've only done the 2. Honestly,
that's one more than me.
Is that right? No, I mean, I keep wanting to go down there more, and that's why, when Jake was more involved in this, and I know Dustin's been on more down there, and so it's like when he was on here, he'd been down a few times, and he could speak to a lot more of the tours down there. So I mean, it's one of those things that knowing you guys, and through the podcast, having these guys like Eric out there, it's just one of those things that it's just anyone, it's finding the time to get away, even for a weekend. It's something that is just difficult to do sometimes, and I encourage everyone to try to do that.
Right.
It's not. I think actually after we've taken people down there, even before we even had the tour company, just going down there with friends, people didn't realize how close it was.
Right. From Columbus, Ohio.
From Columbus, it's like 3 hours down.
It's easy.
And it's an easy drive.
Yeah, I hit the 2 up, and that was Willett and Four Roses. That was a day trip, and we stopped at Party Source on the way back.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, we did it. We left at like 8 a.m. We got back, I think it was like, and that was, we stopped for dinner at some random, exit at a Mexican restaurant, and that was with, an hour dinner. We got back, I think it was like 9:30 at night, 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it was a day trip.
I mean, you can do it. I mean, from Columbus, you can easily do it in a day.
Yeah.
But if you did, I mean, you skip out after work on Friday, even if you took like a half day or something, and then Saturday have a big tour day, and then out Sunday.
Yeah.
I mean, you can even come down after work. I mean, get there a little bit later, but no big deal.
No.
We've had people do that before. I mean, they're coming in, they're getting in 9, 10 o'clock Friday night, and they're going on tour with us Saturday.
It's a great weekend trip.
I've drove down past about 6:30 and get down there about 10. You still have time to run around a little bit, get something to eat, and then go to the hotel.
Yeah.
Hit it for the next day pretty good, and get you on the way back. I'm like 3 hours really isn't too bad. I mean,
it's not, especially if you're smoking a cigar on the way down.
Less than a tank of gas.
Which is what we try to talk you guys into with the cigar tour. But you guys have changed your business model overall. I understand. I did just have an opportunity, and I was not able to do it again because of work, unfortunately, the way things are. But I think it was last week or the week before. The guys over at Fido, Irish Pub and Restaurant, our neighbor at Tinderbox, and also the one in Dublin, they were doing another Elijah Craig barrel pick.
Oh, nice.
And I was going to go down there and do it with them. And they had the Buffalo Trace red carpet tour.
Okay.
Which is one of their options there and everything like that. And it was a Tuesday, Wednesday. I wasn't able to do it, but I'm hoping to go on the next one. But those types of things also, I think you can see a little bit more as well when you're going to buy a barrel. I don't know if you guys have ever done anything like that or been a part of that.
Not to buy a barrel. I mean, we've done plenty of barrel picks, but not really,
Not for you, but you've been a part of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
With organizations or societies, yes.
Yeah.
No, we've never personally bought a barrel yet.
Something to shoot for.
Yeah. Gotta have
like
goals.
the yet.
Goals.
All right, Nate. Let's hit the cigar here. All right, turn your mic on. So before we switch gears here completely, I do want to address the other part of the Bourbon and BS podcast, which is the cigars. We're smoking a Fuente, Arturo Fuente. It is it says Reserva, like it says on a lot of them, but the Don Carlos, and this is named after Don Carlos Sr., who passed away in 2016. This was something that he kind of put his name on because, and I believe it was before the Opus X, and this is something that was kind of the premier line for them when it first came out. It's got a Cameroon wrapper on it, and it's got Dominican filler and binder, which Fuente is one of the few companies that they use a lot of Cameroon tobacco, and that's coming from, if you're familiar, Cameroon, Africa. So it's something that used as a wrapper leaf, it's a little more difficult because it is a little, I would call it, typically it's a little uglier. It's harder to find a smooth high-end wrapper leaf, which is the outside leaf of the cigar. So this is something that's one of their more premier cigars, in my opinion. But as far as price point, like on our shelf, it's only $12.95, so it's nothing like anything way hard to get. It's nothing way like expensive. It's nothing like super exclusive. But it's something that I feel like, at least in our shop and some other shops, it's kind of lost in the mix of some of their more rare stuff that's like once-a-year releases. Kind of like some of the bourbons out there where you have an everyday type of cigar, just like an everyday bourbon, but it still hits in that price point of like $40 or $50. Nothing too crazy expensive, but people kind of pass over it because it's kind of like, oh yeah, that used to be good. I used to seek that out. Now I'm looking for the more limited stuff. Now I'm looking for the more exclusive things that you can't get anymore. And I think that's what happens here with this cigar. What do you think, Nate, of this cigar?
So I'm one of the few people in the shop that really enjoys Cameroon tobacco.
Correct.
You're right though. A lot of times with Cameroon, you tend to get wrappers that have sunspots on them, which just to the naked eye, that can kind of turn some people off. But people that actually know what Cameroon tobacco is about, know just how it's a very harsher growing season. It's a very shorter growing season. They don't grow as much as what they do in Central America or in Nicaragua, in Dominican Republic. So it's very hard to get your hands on. It's also a very delicate tobacco, which is what makes it difficult to use as a wrapper, because a lot of times if you're stretching it to roll it as the wrapper of a cigar, you'll tend to crack them or break them. If you take the band off too early before that glue loosens up on there, you'll crack the wrapper a little bit. So sometimes when people see that wrapper crack, that'll be a negative in their mindset, and they may not know that it's so delicate that can happen very easily. And then it's also a flavor profile that, the way I tell people about Cameroon, you either like it or you don't like it. There's not a whole lot of middle ground.
That's typically true, and I agree with you. This is a cigar in Fuente, the way they use their and Cameroon also, by the way, it's not something that they can go buy a farm in Cameroon, Africa. Like, the government won't allow it. They look after their small equivalent of like a small business owner, like a farmer, where you can't go and you buy it. I mean, we learned that. So Ricky Rodriguez, the CAO master blender, who's coming back on in March, one of the things that he talked about when he was on is that he likes the Cameroon leaf and utilizing it. But like, Fuente can't go over there and just be like, all right, we're going to snatch up all this land and we're going to grow Cameroon. Like, they still have to buy it. Nice. They still have to work through the family farms, which I respect, obviously. I kind of like that aspect of it, honestly. And I also want to mention here, Nate, if you can look at this, and I don't know if you guys can see this. So this is interesting because I've never had this cigar do this, and it's a good point. You looking at this, Nate, right? So on the audio, if you can see it, I don't know if you can see it on the Facebook feed here, but basically, if you've been seeing me, I've not only been relighting this cigar because we're talking and everything else, and like it keeps going out or anything like that, but you can kind of see on here how this part right here doesn't seem to be burning all that well. Right. So there's a lot of people that be like, oh, this cigar is shit, like, this is garbage, throw it out, whatever. Sometimes, for whatever reason, whatever's in this filler is just not combusting. So sometimes it will be Ligero, which is, this is a review, of course, for Becca, who was on, and I was listening to the last time you were on, you were asking a lot of questions, which I loved. But like, it's Ligero that won't. It's less combustible. It's higher up on the plant. It's stronger tobacco, or it's just something about like there might be a stem in there or something like that. They destem everything, but it's just, again, it's a natural product, right? So doing this, I think this is a good point where for those of you watching this, I have smoked through this, and eventually it's going to burn around and everything like that. But for me, if I spent $5 on a cigar, or if I spend $30 on a cigar, and this happens one time, obviously I'm going to try to smoke through it. If it happens 2 or 3 times with the same blend or same company, I might give up on it because obviously there's a reoccurring issue there. Mm-hmm. But with this one, I do want to say is that for those of you watching this, is that the reason I'm smoking through this is because it's actually still smoking well. It's just annoying because it's not falling off. Like I can't ash it quite yet, and see, I can barely break it off there. But now that I got through it, it should be fine.
Oh, pretty interesting.
But with the Cameroon, I don't typically like Cameroon tobacco in a blend. It's so what we describe it as. It's kind of a they say earthy. It's like, yeah, sometimes depending on the blend, if it's Cameroon and stuff like that, you get that earthy feel or the earthy taste. It's like sliding head first into home, and you get like just a mouthful of dirt.
Yeah.
Some people like it. I'm not one of those people, but this one I think is more balanced. I think there's a sweetness to it. I like the way that they blended this cigar. Are you smoking one too, Kyle? Is this your first one? Yeah, so it's his first one. It's medium bodied. I think you've got a little bit of sweetness to it, but you do have a little bit of that earth. So I do, again, smoked one last night to review it. Tonight, smoking it with drinking this E.H. Taylor, I will say that I still get a little bit of that dryness, that dry finish.
Which I think is typical with Cameroon.
That's that dirtiness.
Well, yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed just the flavor profile, and come to think of it, I can't name any Cameroon cigar that would be classified as a full body or as a mild cigar. Seems like all the Cameroons that I've ever smoked, whether it's the Don Carlos or I think their more popular one is going to be the Hemingway series. So
Hemingways,
yeah, the short story
sure.
is by far their best seller. That little tiny cigar that costs you $8. That's why I think this gets lost in the mix too. If people want a Cameroon, they'll buy something from the Hemingway series, or if they want top of the notch Fuente, they go after something like Opus.
Yeah, Opus or like a limited release Opus or the Añejo or something like that. Yeah, I agree.
But I've always enjoyed Cameroon just because I found it very pleasant. But like I said, I mean, all the Cameroons that I've ever smoked seem to have a very, very similar profile, regardless of who makes it and what the blend is. Whether it's the Don Carlos, whether it's the Oliva G, whether it's the La Aurora Carl Malone that just came out, like they all taste kind of similar. Even the LFD Cameroon cabinet,
right? They
all have a very similar taste, and for me, I actually enjoy the flavor. It's very pleasant, very medium body smoke that I think pairs very well with a lot of whiskeys.
I'll say this: they taste very different, but I think there's a similar, call it negative connotation to Cameroon that there is sometimes to San Andres Mexican wrapper leaf, especially when it was first booming. Not as much now, but it was one of those things that kind of like you had to drink a lot of water while you were smoking those because it gives you like cotton mouth. There's something about that finish with that. Again, I will say this is one of, if not my favorite, Cameroon wrapped cigar is the Don Carlos because it doesn't have those overlying prevalent tones of that Cameroon negative connotation, in my opinion.
So would you say it's more well balanced than some of the other? Okay. Yeah. No, I smoked one last night as well, just because I don't know. I actually, before last night, I couldn't remember the last time I'd smoked it.
Which is my point exactly with stuff like this, just like the whiskeys for you guys. That's my point. You know what I mean? It's one of those things. It's like, oh, yeah, I used to drink that. I used to really enjoy that. And then it's like, when was the last time you bought a bottle? And you're like, I couldn't tell you. Right. And then you sip on it or you smoke one of these things. You're like, why am I not drinking this? Why am I not smoking this? Is that what you're kind of, getting at is like.
Yeah, because if someone came into the shop right now and said, hey, pick a Cameroon, like, this isn't probably going to be one of the first 3 Cameroons of the shop that I point them towards, even though it's probably the best one in the shop that we have right now. It just
forget about it.
Yeah, like I said, it gets lost in the mix. Like with Fuente, you have their high end. You have everyone wants the Añejos or the Opus that comes out once a year, or they're going more towards like the 858s, the Hemingway series, the Chateaus. Like those are the bigger sellers. The Opus and stuff, those are the most sought after. This one just gets lost in the mix, I think, even though it's an absolutely fantastic smoke.
I agree.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Now, over from year to year, does that that same brand change? I know, I mean, like anything growing, like wines or even different bourbons have a different taste from year to year. Is the profile from the cigar change dramatically?
So there's some parallels between the industries with, for example, like small batch cigars or limited releases or even limited regular production cigars, because they do, perhaps like with this, they have their hands on a lot of Cameroon wrapper, but not a lot that they're going to use on this cigar. So it will limit what you can do with that as far as how many bottles for bourbon or how many cigars you can actually put out per year. As far as crop goes, yes. Okay. Now, part of the aging and fermentation process with the tobacco, it can help kind of neutralize a little bit of that. But yeah, I mean, if you've got a bad crop, 4 years later, 5 years later, whatever the years are for that what you typically age that tobacco, you'll see a decline in that. Connecticut is a big region here, small region, but big as far as what they do in the United States for tobacco for cigars. When the Connecticut Valley, because again, they don't have the growing seasons like down in the 4 major regions down in Central America, as Nate was saying. But this is something that, in Connecticut, if broadleaf or the Connecticut shade-grown stuff has a rough year, rough climate, because we're all in the, like Midwest too, same thing. One winter, one summer, year to year, completely different. Right. So you're going to have that. Now, they have things like in the barns and the way that the warehouse, as far as the aging and everything else, they have steps to try to minimize that process changing for them. But you're still going to have year to year where people still can't, I feel like, wrap their head around the fact that this is something that is grown. It's something that's handmade. Every step of the process is done by hand for the most part. You have some real basic machinery that's doing some of this stuff, but more or less it's all done by hand. So when it comes back to the farming side of it, if they have a rough year, they can't just be like, oh, we'll just start over. And no, you suffer. But that's where sometimes, and Fuente honestly is one of those companies that one of the reasons why it's been tougher to find stuff from them. And I think some of these other distilleries on the whiskey side of it's kind of the same way, is that the demand goes up, and then they have a lag time of trying to match said demand. And then on top of that, if they do have something where they have a shortage of tobacco, or if they have some issue come up, you're going to have a little bit of delay on some of these products.
Or if they have a shipping container that gets stolen off the port.
Fuente has had stories of just some really unfortunate incidents. They had fires, they had containers come up missing of actual cigars that, like finished products that when it came out of customs, stolen. Trucks stolen. Barn fires, things like that. It's like these things, and it's like you don't recover from that right away.
You see a lot of fluctuation in prices of it when something like that happens.
You don't see as much price changes from the manufacturer. Year to year, it's just like a lot of industries. Like we just got another letter from My Father Cigars, which is a brand, annual increase. Hey, these cigars, or we're just doing a 3%, 5% increase in prices across the board. That just happens. You know what I mean? When I was in the moving and storage industry, it was the stuff you don't always think about. Like, we used a lot of bubble wrap. And when oil prices were going up, petroleum-based products go up. So you'd get something, and we're like, hey, by the way, our bubble wrap's going up this much. Like, oh my God, that's expensive. And you're like, why? And they're like, it's petroleum based. And you're like, okay, I get it. Yeah. So you do see a little bit of that. What you will find, like states that are selling different whiskeys, where things are harder to get, you will find that the price on the shelf from the retailer to the consumer goes up when it's harder to find or it's in more demand. Okay. So you'll see that a little bit. And that could be because of all these different reasons, whether it's just popular or it's because you have an issue. 1792, when they had that major disaster down there, I haven't seen any increases in 1792 as far as price, but in the next year or two, you might. Huh. You might. Because people might, and it may not be from them. They might be like, hey, this is damage control. We're going to take all that hit. We're going to try to keep the prices the same. But when it comes to the end of the day and the consumer's walking in there and say it gets popular again, and all of a sudden you're going to have a not state-controlled liquor agency, and they're going to be like, you know what, that bottle used to be like, $35, $40. Yeah, we'll sell it to you, but because we know secondary market's selling it for $80, we're going to sell it for $65, $70.
And that has happened.
It has happened, and it does happen. So Fuente's one, like with the Opus X we brought up, or the Añejos, there are shops here in town because we're not state-controlled on pricing. And the manufacturers look out for you a little bit, but like where we'll have a cigar that's $14.95 because of Keystone markup, we'll even have people question us on the retail side when it's like, well, this can't be the real thing because I just bought this for $27, same exact cigar, at another shop in town. And that's a touchy conversation. You want to be like, well, I mean, it is the real thing. I wouldn't shop there anymore. Like, I don't want to talk bad about the competitors, but Kyle, what'd you have?
I met somebody just the other day. He sometimes comes by the shop, but he's going down to one of the Fuente farms and is setting up a security system for them because of how much is getting stolen from them.
Yeah.
I also wanted to add, I think, I could be wrong, but I think Fuente, because of their size and how much they produce, I think they're actually one of a handful of tobacco companies that actually has at least one climate-controlled aging barn.
Really?
The company I used to work for put one in. Like, their main aging barn was, almost a football field long, but then they had one other aging barn that was kind of about the size of your house, Steve.
Yeah.
That was completely climate-controlled, humidity, temperature, everything. And down there in the Dominican Republic, at least for the company I worked for, that building, just the building with the climate control was a $70,000 endeavor.
Yeah.
And so I think Fuente is actually one of those that does the same thing. And the reason they do that is they found that when you have that climate control, you actually greatly increase the quality of tobacco leaves that can be used as wrapper, because the wrapper on a cigar costs more than all the other tobacco in that cigar combined. So when you have more leaves that can be used as the wrapper, that's more beneficial because you're able to produce more cigars. You're not having to buy as much tobacco from other farms. So I think they're actually one of the handful that has at least one of those types of facilities where they age their tobacco.
Yeah, because the wrapper leaf is the one you're looking at, so you can't have it look ugly. You know what I mean? So that's part of that process. And we talk about like aging barns and stuff like that. So when I was in Connecticut, it's kind of that's where I go back to the whole Willet side of things, where like you walk through like the rick houses don't have like air conditioning units. They don't have. I mean, it's based on when that barrel is aging in there. It is the natural climate around it.
Right.
That's just how this works. So that's where the different levels, different floors of the rick house will produce different things. And if you know a good year of when this was barreled and when it was bottled, and I mean that's you get really further into it. Like there's people talking about that. I mean, when you have in Connecticut of all places, people don't think about that for tobacco growth, but I mean they have ways to kind of cool it, where it's literally like every other board on the side of the barn. They basically will open up that. They're all on basically this board going across where they can just manually open it to vent it if the humidity is too high. And in the 6-week process of these leaves that are being hung from the barn, they'll close it. They'll open it. If they're home at night and they looked at the weather and it's going to rain for the next 2 days, now they have to do something different. I mean, it's an everyday process there to try to minimize that. But I'll say this with this cigar. I think it's definitely something that people have forgotten about, and I encourage everyone to try it again, especially if you're looking for a medium-bodied cigar. We did this last week for the first time with E.H. Taylor, as we're rounding out part 1 here. On a scale of 1 to 10, everyone does like the bourbon reviews, and it's usually out of what, like 100? Or what do you guys? What's it rated?
1 to 10.
I don't know. I mean, I have to be honest. I really, when it comes to reviews, because every palate and everybody's taste is different. I mean, I kind of look at some of the notes and things, but I really make my own determination. I mean, I won't steer clear of a bourbon just because somebody gave it a certain rating. I mean, I'm willing to give about anything a go.
Okay, but if I'm asking, and I say, okay, based on just overall. So, I mean, one of the things we did this with the Whistle Pig 12 last week. You know, we talked about, like, in our mind, we're trying to taste, drinkability, or whatever you want to classify. But in your mind, we talked about value. We tried it. I mean, with Whistle Pig 12, it was $120, $125 a bottle, so it was hard to get that out of your head.
Yeah.
At $30, $35 a bottle, hard to get out of your head.
Right.
Because it's kind of on that lower end now. It's harder to find. But out of a scale of 10 being the highest, I mean, where would you put this for what it is?
I would say this bourbon definitely lands around 8. I mean, for price point, quality, flavor, texture, really
Availability, yeah.
Availability, ability to really serve this to anybody. I think a bourbon drinker who is new could enjoy this, and a bourbon drinker who's been drinking for years and has had all the big brands and all the big guys and all those expensive bourbons would also enjoy this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a good, solid bourbon. I mean, you can't really go wrong with it.
I have to agree with her. I was kind of thinking 8.
Eight?
Agrees with me.
Well, I do.
Does that not
I
happen
had
very
I had
often? Do you need a copy of this recording?
That's right. I had that number in my head before you said it. But anyway, it's she describes things so much better than I do. I mean, really, I have to write stuff down and remember what I did yesterday.
That's fair. Yeah, no, I understand.
It is. It's good, solid. And the price point and availability is a big thing you got to look at, if whether you can get it, and then it's readily available here in Ohio as well.
I'm not too far off. I'd say, this is one where, not to be different, I'd say like 7 or 8. You know what I mean? Like 7, just because at the price point and everything else, I think this is something that if you can find it, it's great. I love, and we didn't talk about it at all, and maybe we'll talk about it when we do another one. We did the straight rye before. The overall marketing and the packaging behind this, like, I took the tube off the table because it was blocking Mark here. Right. But I remember the first time that a friend brought this over to be like, hey, let's try this, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, it's got to be expensive. Because I was coming from more of like drinking scotches and stuff like that, which the tubes are used, and you know what I mean? But you look at this, it's very, very classy looking. I mean, this is something that they definitely went timepiece on this.
It is. I mean,
time
that's
period.
Because of E.H. Taylor himself. I mean, I don't know if you realize or not, E.H. Taylor used to change his clothes like 3 times a day.
Really?
Yes. I mean, he was a very intuitive meticular. Yeah, definitely meticular. I mean, he was such a visionary for his era.
Yeah.
And he was just like a really astute, classy man. I mean, he really had style. He really had it all. I mean, it was great. Yeah. And
killer hat too.
And a killer hat. Killer hat, vest, pocket watch, I mean,
it was a different time, right? I mean,
it was a different time.
The way that everyone dressed obviously was different.
True.
But attention to detail, for sure, I can see that.
Right.
And that's what's so great. As you look at the distilleries that he was involved in, as you go from the Old Crow, Woodford Reserve, he was a part of that for a time, Buffalo Trace, and then his last distillery, the Old Taylor Distillery, which is now Castle and Key. I mean, the detail in that one was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And he really saw, he was probably one of the only people who saw Bourbon Country ever becoming an actual tourism spot. I mean, everybody else is looking at him going, what? People want to come see dirty old rick houses and distilleries? I mean, they're really going to want to come here? Like, no.
Be cool to see. I mean, this is like kind of like one of those like things you just say, especially after a lot of drinks. You're like, man, if only like, E.H. Taylor could see it now.
Right.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I mean, just to see that dream kind of come to fruition and to see where it's at now and all I mean, that's cool. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Like she was mentioning earlier, he was a showmanship. He was just he built all of his distilleries with beauty included in them. If you look around Buffalo Trace, we didn't mention it, but they have beautiful gardens. Yeah. You can walk back up, and they do many, many weddings there, and wedding receptions and dinners. So he had all these things in mind when he built these distilleries. And same with his Castle and Key, actually beautiful, beautiful grounds.
Yeah.
the spring, the natural spring, what they drew water from, it's just a beautiful thing. That's what they call the key for Castle and Key. But it's
and
just
if
a
you
beautiful
see it from
place.
the aerial, the spring house,
Yeah.
and the reason why they call it Castle and Key is because the spring house is actually in the shape of a key.
Oh.
But you can only really see that from an aerial perspective.
Well, see, I was looking at this, so that the same Eric's been a part of this conversation. I also want to give a shout out to Jake Morris on here. Jake says, happy to be tuning in live tonight. I've been listening to the podcast for over a year. Definitely been on the lookout for an E.H. Taylor. Very hard to find in Columbus. Agreed. But Eric said that E.H. Taylor used to run the river locks for Buffalo Trace, and you had to pay to get through.
Yeah, and there's actually another company in Frankfurt. They do that. Allison and Nathan, they run Kentucky River tours, and they can take you up into those locks.
Yeah.
So they have some really great tours, and they start right there at Buffalo Trace, and so that's a great experience as well.
I want to see you and Eric hook up as far as communication, because I think that there's something there with his Airbnbs and some of the things that you guys are doing, and the fascination with the history and everything like that. I think there's something that could expand both sides of that. I mean, I'm not going to tell you guys what to do, but I think that that's worth a text conversation at the very least.
Definitely.
But yeah, so with that being said, I do want to move on to part two. So with this, for the audio side of it, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to 107.1. Thank our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton, for the Don Carlos that we're smoking. I want to thank Rolling Barrel Tours for bringing the E.H. Taylor small batch and for being a part of this. It's amazing. I have always enjoyed this whiskey, and so I'm happy we did end up choosing that one here tonight, and the tie-in where I think we might dive into it even further, but you can't give away secrets on the whole E.H. Taylor thing, so I'll see if I can pry, maybe. We'll see. And then also, Altadis USA, I'm going to be lighting up a Upman Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez from them for the second part of it, and then also BS Cigar Company. Stay on the lookout. We will be happy to announce when the BS Golds come back in, and also the Silvers. Eric Espinosa, who does that for us. Brian and I actually blended with Eric Espinosa and Hector down there with Espinosa Cigars for the BS Silver, and Eric texted me today that all the sizes should be in his possession next week, so he's worked on getting that on a container and headed his way, so we're excited about that. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. If you guys are listening to the audio only, make sure you check out part 2, so 107.2. And then if you're on Facebook right now, I encourage you guys, if you're just tuning in or you're hanging out, Eric, I know you're big into the bourbon side of it, but this is where we kind of take a little bit of a turn and get into the life topic part of it, which is going to be a segue. I don't know if you guys are excited about that or need another glass of whiskey.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. So, yeah, thank you guys very much. Cheers for part 1. Cheers. Thank you guys very much. Clinky. Saving.
I'm trying to remember from, I think we had an E.H. Taylor product on before.
Straight rye, I know.
Wasn't he one of the big pushers and proponents of the Bottled in Bond Act?
Yes.
He was.
Yes.
He was one of the major legislators of that act. A lot of the things that people don't know about him is that he was very involved in politics.
Mm-hmm.
So he did do a lot of legislation. He did really push for that Bottle and Bond Act because of making whiskey safe. I mean, there was so much crazy stuff going on in that period. So, talking about like rut gut whiskey, they really had it. I mean, they had whiskey that kill you, or going blind, things like that. I mean, they were putting all kinds of crazy stuff into this bottle to give it a color instead of letting it age like it needed to be. So yeah, he did. He was a big pusher for that. I think another one.
Wasn't he a proponent to keep Frankfurt the capital?
Yes. Yeah, he absolutely.
Say that again in the microphone for everyone out there.
I'm sorry, I was
sorry.
Step away. H. Taylor was a big proponent to keep Frankfurt the capital of Kentucky rather than it moving to Louisville. And so he pushed a lot of politics there and kept it there. And it's still a small town, but it's capital.
Is the smallest capital in the United States.
That actually reminds me of a funny story. When I was in high school on my senior year of football, one of the freshman linemen had asked one of the coaches, why is it that offensive linemen have the reputation of being the dumbest ones on the team? And the coach goes, all right, how do you pronounce the capital of Kentucky? Is it Louisville or Louisville?
Yo,
And the guy goes, Louisville. He goes, Frankfurt. That's why.
that's a setup, by the way. I'm sure it's.
Yes, it was a setup.
That's not based on position alone.
No, like if you get into the college ranks, linemen are the smartest guys on the team typically.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they have some of the highest GPAs on the team a lot of times. Them, maybe your quarterbacks, but yeah, they're. I mean, with all the blocking assignments and everything they have to do, they're not as dumb as their reputation.
I feel like most American citizens, other than the people that just took the citizenship test, wouldn't know that answer either. What's the capital of Illinois? Chicago. Wrong. Get out.
Springfield.
I know. All right. You want to keep rolling here?
Sure. We didn't actually say, Steve, what would you 1 to 10 the cigar?
Oh, the cigar, yeah. So, yeah, I didn't do that. See, we are bourbon heavy here.
We're the only two smoking it, so.
So, out of 10, I'd say with the Don Carlos, kind of right there with it. Based on price point and everything else, I'd say a 7 or 8. It's tough, Let's call it a 7.5.
I put it at a 7, just because maybe knock a couple tenths off, but just because it gets lost in the mix. It's a great cigar. I just think it gets lost in the mix. If you want the Cameroon, people will spend the $8 on a short story or something like that. Or
I think it's harder to find than most people think too.
Yeah,
this is not. You can find the Hemingway series a lot sooner than you can find a Don Carlos at a lot of shops.
Yeah, which for me is the reason why, like for E.H. Taylor, just on flavor and price, I put that at least a 7. But because of the availability here in Columbus, I mean, you can sit there and knock a lot of points off because of the availability, just because it's one of those where people either wait 2 hours before the truck shows up, or on Saturday mornings when certain stores hold all that stuff until Saturday at 9 a.m., they're there at 7:30, and if you show up at 8:45, you're number 20 in line. Good luck finding what you want. So
I'd be interested in, I don't know if you guys know this for your tours and with the E.H. Taylor thing that you're doing here, is that, what's the yield, if you will, or what's the release of, say, the E.H. Taylor small batch? Because those are the things that I always wonder as a part of this, is that when you go state by state, you go to like the Ohio side of it, being state run, is Buffalo Trace not releasing as much? Is it like something that people are, allocation to different states? Is that affecting it? It's just, I'd be interested to just, and maybe they don't release those numbers, but like, what's the average for this year? What's the annual number for Buffalo Trace as it is? How many bottles are released or bottled a year, distributed or released, probably, because they probably are obviously at their level. Every step slows down at some point, but how does that compare to like the E.H. Taylor small batch or the Eagle Rare or Blanton's? You know what I mean? Like, how do those numbers? I'd love to see a chart, and I guess I never looked, but at the same time, I don't know if anyone has really. They don't talk about it.
I think it'd be. Do you know of anything like that? A chart being to know?
No, I don't know of anything like that. I'm sure there's some type of sales record or tracking that they do.
I think that'd be interesting, though, because if they release that and they're like, hey, yeah, actually more E.H. Taylor is bottled every year than Buffalo Trace, and everyone's going to be like, well, what the fuck? Where is it at?
Right. Well, here's what I think.
But I doubt it.
I think, as far as like some of our states, it's definitely an allocation issue.
Yeah.
That falls into that. I don't think there's much of a, there's plenty of availability of it. It's one of the releases every week at Buffalo Trace. I could pretty much... I got like a stockade of this stuff. I got like 8 bottles.
Yeah.
Well, here's the reason why is because on our E.H. Taylor tour, you do get to enjoy some of this.
There's one place you can try it.
Right. Yeah, there's one place you can try it. I wouldn't know those numbers, but I do know. Okay, so they got like a $1.9 billion expansion going on.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's huge. That is going into production, bottling, and also into expanding their visitor center. I don't know.
They have two new ones. They have
Up on the hill.
Up on the hill.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many's slated to go up there.
I'm not sure.
But
either.
but that's part of the expansion. They put in new. What all did they put in? New tanks and everything. They had
a new bottling facility. I
new
think
bottling
was one
facility.
Of the things they were doing.
New. They had the whole. I mean, I've seen pictures where they've had the whole walls taken out, new equipment going in. One other thing about the availability, is you can go in Frankfurt or even in Kentucky and not find Weller. But you could come up here and buy it in any.
You could buy
any
Weller
store
Antique
here.
up here any day of the week. And
I
we'll
wish.
tell you,
And,
I was just
and those
you
people
can't?
down
I
there.
can find special reserve, not antique.
Oh, well, we can get it.
But
It's one of those you have to wait till it's
yeah,
it comes on the truck.
but you
Okay.
can get it. But
Yeah.
the guys down around Frankfurt, they're like, hey,
They
we
can't
can't
get
get
it.
it
Listen,
at all.
I've seen this
Crazy.
thing in Kentucky liquor stores, 107.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to be like a $28 bourbon, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
And now it's 50.
It's 50
It went
here.
to 35, and now it's 50 here.
Yeah.
I've seen price tags $119 and even $199 on a bottle of Weller Antique.
Yeah.
I'm like, because
Someone should be shot for that.
There's actually an Instagram page that they'll sit there and they'll actually post pictures that people take of either really good prices. So, for example, people find Eagle Rare on the shelf for $24.99.
Oh yeah.
But then they also post pictures of, say, there was one. It was a 1.75 of Weller Special Reserve, the green label, that was $370 for green label.
Perfect. All right. Let's get started here. We could go on forever on this, which we can. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast. This is part 2 of episode 107. I want to thank Mark and Becca for staying with us here on the after the H. Taylor. We're talking about rolling barrel tours, and I want to this is a good time. We didn't really do it in part 1, so I got to make sure I share this more. But how can people find you guys? Rolling Barrel Tours.
Okay, you can find us online, www.rollingbarreltours.com. We are also on Instagram, Facebook. You can reach out to us through there. If you want more information, feel free to call us. Our number is 502-382-1734, and you'll get to speak to our tour coordinator, and she basically will talk to you about what kind of tour you'd like to do and get a feel for what you enjoy, because all of our tours are customized. It's customized to you, to what you like to do, to where you want to go, and we'll put that together for you. We also, not only do we do just bourbon distilleries, but we also can add in some other activities there. We do have different relationships with some other venues in recreation, golfing, trap shooting, bass fishing. I mean, we have all kinds of like really great outdoorsman kind of activities that you can put with your bourbon tour.
Can they see the sites too? Other than
Oh yeah, we could do sites, and we'll talk to you about those kind of things too.
Nice,
Because here's one thing
nice.
about my website: you can't book your own tour.
Yeah,
You have to
talk
call
someone.
and talk to one of us, because
What's the person they're going to talk to's name usually?
typically it's Beverly.
Okay, Beverly. Gotcha.
Yeah, so it'd be Beverly or myself as of right now. But yeah, so that would be your first point of contact, and you can always email us, and we can always reach back out to you if you want to
Nice.
send us an email of things that you enjoy or like doing. If you go into our website, you can go to a contact page, and we actually have made it really easy for you. You can go through there and like other points of interest. Like if you do want to do something with horses, or maybe you want to take maybe some of the ladies on the tour want to do some wineries. We have
Yeah.
some things like that. We even have downtown shopping. I mean, we have some great things. I mean, we've even split guys and girls off.
Yeah.
So we've sent guys
Basically, whatever
on-
you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what makes it a really happy marriage, guys. Okay. So y'all get to do
Are you
bourbon.
talking about your guys' marriage or the trip?
Well, for the trip.
Okay.
No, we
Great
have a happy
response.
marriage. But I mean, we do make it so that, okay, say maybe ladies don't want to do bourbon all day. Maybe they're like, okay, well, it's kind of for him.
Yeah.
It's not so much for me. Even though more women are getting more involved in
Oh,
whiskey
yeah.
drinking, there's still some that just aren't quite, that just don't want to, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't like it, you don't like it. You know, but we have some alternatives. Like we can do a ladies itinerary. Like while the guys are off doing like maybe a cigar and bourbon pairing, we got the ladies down at a winery.
Yeah.
Or we take them into like downtown Bardstown, and they can go to all the little cute little novelty eclectic shops, where they want to do. And we also put together bourbon dinners. We work with several different bars where we can go in and, I mean, if you want to do like a unicorn tasting, we can do that.
That's awesome.
I mean, if you want to try bourbons that were bottled in 1962, 1978, we can do that too. I mean, we even know I can find the Tornado bourbon for you too.
Really?
Yes.
So basically anything you want, you can find out. Yeah.
I
love it.
Anything, but we do have a lot of options available out there.
My point is that for this and what I've heard from tonight so far on part 1, and you guys check that out if you're on the audio side of it, or you're just tuning in now to part 2. But if you talk to Beverly, if you guys reach out, or if you guys reached out to Rolling Barrel Tours, if you think you're the expert on it already and you've been down there many times, you might actually know as much or more about certain aspects. What I like about this with your upcoming Taylor tour, things like that, if you've done it several times, you already know all these places, you've been down there dozens of times. This is something you haven't done yet. That's what I like about it. If you're doing it for the first time and you don't really know, you're just looking in a magazine, you're looking on websites and all that stuff, you can reach out to you guys and get it. And for whatever it is, the amount of time, I'm like, there's as little cost as you want, as little hands-on as you want. We can point you in the right direction. We can set you up with these places for this fee, or we can walk you around and do all this stuff. I mean, it's what they want out of it, and that's what I like about it.
Exactly.
It's for every aspect of people that have been down there.
Yeah, I mean, we can really curate that to anybody's taste.
I love it.
I mean,
Well, before we get in, I'm sorry, I do want to thank our sponsors for part 2 here. Is that Tinderbox at Easton for providing the first cigar, which was the Fuente Don Carlos. That's going to be 15. That's 15% off for the week until next week's podcast, which we have Pat Byrne on from Burns Pub. Also, he's launching a new Irish whiskey, so I'm excited to. I've had one sample of it. He was kind enough to give me, but it's called Bua. So check that out if you guys are in Ohio. It's going to be nationwide, hopefully sooner than later. We'll find out more about that next week. But between now and then, you get 15% off of the Fuente Don Carlos. We have a double Robusto at the Tinderbox at Easton. We can sell you one cigar if you come in, as little as one cigar, or we can sell you five-pack going out to you if we're going to be mailing it to you with 15% off. Also, Altadis USA, I'm about to get started here shortly on the Upman, H. Upman Nicaragua by AJ Fernandez, which I love that cigar. Another medium-bodied cigar. It'll be a good follow-up here. So thank you, Altadis USA, H. Upman, Monte Cristo, Romeo and Julieta, along with other brands that they carry. Thanks to Josh and Paul and everyone else that really pushed this sponsorship through as well. And then BS Cigar Company. Stay tuned for more BS cigars as we go forward into this year. I'm looking forward to that. So also the Patreon page. I know we're getting some more people to sign up for that. We do have, I'm getting very, very close. I've been saying it for a few weeks here. We've got merchandise coming. It's just a matter of time. I'm working on it. It's every little step comes along with it. I asked Becca actually at one point about your T-shirts, and I'm like, who'd you use? What T-shirts you use? Because it's like, I don't want it to just be your normal T-shirt. It's something that I want people to wear. We've got whiskey glasses I'm working on as well, stuff like that. So we're definitely looking forward to that. So if you guys want to be a part of it, anyone that's a Patreon patron, you will get a thank you gift if you get in now early. And then once we set up tiers, we're going to get that all squared away as well. So, guys, thank you very much. The topic tonight for part 2, adapt or die. And the reason I picked this topic is because between episode 67 and episode 107, you guys have adapted a lot. And when I think of these things, and it's like how relevant that is to life, and I had a conversation today with a rep, and I'm not going to call anyone out or anything like that. They didn't say anything bad. It's more of they were asking me about. So we have a trade organization in the cigar industry called PCA. And the PCA is basically the Premium Cigar Association, and one of their big things is that they have a trade show every year. This trade show used to be something that if you attended it, you would get some great deals as retailers for products from the manufacturers. This slowly turned into what I basically will compare it to the Christmas shopping season, where it used to be Black Friday. It was crowded because you would go out and you would get some great sales all day long. Early bird specials would be even better. And then if you missed that day, you're paying full price until maybe a random day at certain stores. They're going to throw out, hey, halfway to Christmas from Thanksgiving, we're going to do another sale. But other than that, you're paying full retail, until the 26th of December. Then all of a sudden, fast forward to today, and it's on November 11th. Hey, Black Friday specials are starting tomorrow. It's like it was Black Friday, then it was Cyber Monday. Now it's basically mid-November all the way to January 1st you can get the sales. And so everyone's wondering why retail sales are down, things of that nature. It's because you don't make it exclusive. That's what they've done here at this point, is that now all the manufacturers have month-long specials. And now the PCA is looking at this where their trade show is like, why is attendance down? Why are people not coming and all of that stuff? And it was like having you guys on, having this conversation today, my whole thing is that, if you fail to adapt, whether it be especially in business, but in relationships as well, personal relationships, romantic relationships, but especially in like business and career and everything else, if you don't want to adapt, and I'm not just saying follow trends, but if you don't adapt at all, and you just like, no, this is what we're doing, I'm going to stick to it, you literally will run yourself into the grave, and you will be frustrated the whole time, you won't get it, and if you don't keep up with the times, you don't have any success. So, I mean, we talked about it a little bit on the first part, but the way I want to, I introduced obviously that side of it, but for you guys, I mean, and you can go back to some of your other business, aspects of the trucking, the farming, and everything else, but it's like you have to change because everything around you is changing. Technology is the biggest part of it. So if you were to do your business right now and you're like, hey, you know what, we're just going to do old school, just like the bourbon industry is old school. We're going to have a phone number and you have to call and that's it. No email, no website, no Facebook page, no nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, especially in the bourbon industry. I mean, them things are moving so fast. And us being a new company with it, we're kind of been paying attention to what everybody else is doing, but also you got to find your own niche. Yeah. And so it's kind of what I look at is with bringing out the personal side, the history, the stories behind what you're drinking or what you're interested in drinking is our niche where we're looking at something new. I mean, we're all the time thinking of ways to change, ways to make us better, and also new ideas that we're not seeing. Yeah. So I mean, which is really, that's probably about the funnest part of the whole thing.
Well, the Taylor Tour was one of the things that I was like just shocked at, because that's, again, adapting is not always just following the trends and doing. We talked about, I think, the last time we were on, the subject was striking while the iron's hot. Oh. And that was something that came to mind when you guys were talking about it. It's like you guys were taking it from a different angle, but you were in this hot industry. And now, a year later, you're like, all right, what do we need to do to set ourselves apart?
And that's what we've discovered. I mean, there's a lot of tour companies out there. Yeah. And a lot of them are doing, I mean, kind of a similar concept. I mean, take it to a distillery and you do your tour, pick you back up, go do another one. And that's fine. I mean, we do that too. So that's fine. There's nothing. It's a good concept. It's what people want. But I really wanted to be able to offer levels. Yeah. So, I mean, we definitely have that level where if you're a little bit new to the industry, here's what we can do. And then maybe some of the people who's like, okay, I kind of did that, so I'm looking for something different, and here's that. And then I'm kind of growing with that bourbon drinker. Yeah. So we can do the newbie stuff. Then we do like the intermediate stuff. And now I'm looking for that stuff that maybe the connoisseur bourbon drinker is doing, or wanting to do. There's a lot of people out there who already know what bourbons they like. They've already been to distilleries. They know the whole ABCs of making bourbon, the 51% corn, charred barrel, so on, so on, so on. And that's kind of like what every distillery does on their general tours. So they do those things, and that's fine because, I mean, people going there, they may not know as much. But there's a certain clientele that's beyond that. Yeah. Okay. So now they're looking at, what can you give me? What is out there that I don't know about that I can do? Yeah. And that's really where it starts working with like the culinary scene. Working with I mean, we have a couple tours coming up that are including like chef's table kind of dinners that have been put together that we've worked with these restaurants to do.
Now, did you have people asking for that, or is this okay?
Well, we do have people asking for that, and then we also sometimes, if we get a good feel or a good vibe of the client who's like, okay, this sounds like this may be something they would enjoy or like to do. These are not cheap.
Yeah.
Okay, we're looking at anywhere, I mean, minimum $500 for two.
Yeah.
Okay, starting point.
Okay.
Okay. So, but that is definitely for someone who is looking for an incredible experience. Typically, they will do these. I mean, I'm an executive bourbon steward, but let me tell you, I mean, maybe to some people that's really impressive, and I mean, it is.
It looks good on a business
it's a
card,
good
that's
thing,
for sure. Yeah.
Right. Let me tell you,
or on your
though,
pamphlet, your brochure, your website, absolutely.
Yes. When we go down there, though, and there's gentlemen and ladies both who have been in this business, and they know it, I mean, you know, over and under and sideways. And it's like you're listening to them talk, and you're just like, I'm just not even going to say anything because, you know, they're just so intelligent, and they're so versed in it, and they grew up in it.
Right.
I mean, they grew up in it. I mean, if you live in Central Kentucky, and you're along that bourbon trail, you grew up in bourbon. And bourbon actually relatively is new to me. It's not something I've done my entire life. It is, I think we just kind of started getting a whiskey, like pretty much when we started going to Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And really starting to learn it. Like we were drinking Pappy when it was $15 a pour.
Nice.
Okay. All right. I mean, if I would have known what was going to happen, I would have bought every bottle on that shelf.
It was stocked up.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
No idea.
Right.
But, you know, at the time, I was like, well, we're like, yeah. I mean, we're like $15. We won't pay $15 for a pour. I mean, we're like thinking this.
Yeah.
you
yeah.
know?
Well, I mean, in retail anymore, it still is not out of the universe. I mean, it's normal retail.
Retail, yes.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's the demand. And
Yeah,
like,
and
you
trying
know,
to
we were
find
talking
it.
about part one where the same
Right.
thing with like cigars, and like you were asking about like do you see the prices change? I mean, yeah, you see it.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, then like our certain clients who are looking maybe for stuff that was like we just recently we went to a unique and rare bourbon tasting back in December.
Yeah.
Amazing event, wasn't it? I mean, we tried bourbons.
It was.
We get to try Pre-Fire Heaven Hill,
Nice.
bottled in 1978, 21 year. I mean, and so great experience. Plus, I don't know how many. Oh my gosh, we
Nate's
had
geeking out over here.
so
Yeah.
many. I can't even tell you how much bourbon we had. We had quite a bit. Anyway, but we do have these relationships with certain people who do have these type of bourbons.
Sure.
If you want to do some Dusties, if you want to do some, I mean, if you really want to do it, we can make it happen.
So it sounds like you're just constantly doing that. You're adapting. You're
We are
opening
constantly
your
adapting.
portfolio. You know, it's like you don't want to say no to someone, but you also don't want to give them a short experience either.
No, and we really want to know you as the client.
Yeah.
Like we
I
wanna
remember that from the
we
first time you were on.
really-
That was something that stood
exactly.
out.
I want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Or someone who works for me will talk to you.
Yeah.
I mean, we want to know you, and your driver, your guide, he's going to be interactive with you.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys, these are good old Kentucky boys. They grew up in it. They know it. They can take you places that are off the beaten trail. That I mean, like our new guide Sam. I mean, I'm sitting here listening to him talk, and I'm like, we're just gonna go out on the trail one day with you because
Yeah.
he's talking about all these great places. And we're like, I've never been there. You know, I've been going to Kentucky, and I've been all over that little region. But there's just places, there's just little nooks and crannies that I don't know about.
Yeah.
And
That's the producer over here.
Yeah.
I know.
Saying direct into the mic.
Right.
I do want to say something
But-
like, and I'm getting comments from some of our guys that
Okay.
are, and this is kind of a side note, but I want to address it. Mark Jeremias is trying to call in. We got a group down in Cuba right now.
Okay.
And they're trying to call in. I want to say to everyone out there, we're talking about adapting or dying. This is something that I was just talking to Nate about prior to tonight, before everyone came over tonight, is that one of the things that we want to do is that we're trying to improve. Last time you were on, for example, we had a microphone in the middle of the table.
Yep.
We had the current setup. We had moved to Facebook Live. And we've seen growth and all those things. Mark and the guys down there, anyone else, this is something that we are working on, is to try to get call-ins. We are doing this. We are educating ourselves on a constant basis, much like you guys are with this business, is that every little bit. I mean, like the technology that we have now was a huge improvement over last time you were here. Now we go forward, and it's like I want to take a call in. I don't know what state you guys are in down in Cuba after a day of the festival and a lot of rum. But no, yeah. But no, I'm looking at doing that so we can get some call-ins and things like that. Where that's something that Nate behind the board here, he could actually kind of facilitate that. That's why we like the feed. So if there's anything you want to cover down there in Cuba, Mark and Dave and Hutch and Aaron, if you guys have any questions or anything like that, sorry we can't take your call. Don't take it personally. We're not there yet, but. That's something that we're looking at as well. Is that I mean, it's just anything you're doing, whether it be your primary business, which this was not your primary business at first. A little over a year ago.
Right.
Right? When
Correct.
I said March.
We'll be a year old.
March is an annual, that's the anniversary right there, right? So you're not even a year in, and you've already completely switched gears.
No, keep in mind though, I did like a year and a half of research prior to this.
Agreed.
So I did. But I can't say I didn't open the business. We weren't open for business till March.
No, but your product, I mean, completely has changed. I mean, it's
did.
evolved. It's adapted. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. Like if you would have stuck with your original, when we met last, Mark says we're lit, baby. Maybe another reason why we don't want to take your call, even though that sounds extremely entertaining. I love you guys. But if you would have stuck with that business model from last May when we met the first time on this podcast, you may have already folded up shop. I'm saying that now. Or you would have.
Or we would have, if we would have had to stay in Ohio, then we probably would have had to look at the brewery district, the wineries up on the lake.
You'd have adapted in another way.
Adapt in a different way.
My point is, though, is if you would have just been like, hey, this is what we want to do.
Oh, no.
And we want to take people down on a bus or on a van or in a van, and we want to get down there. We want to do what we want to do. People aren't calling. I just have to work harder on getting the word out and doing this. You could have found success. You could have found a specialty niche. But I feel like in the last, 8, 9, 10 months, it's been just so many changes.
Yes.
And so much growth.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think when I think our first concept of what we were doing, we really thought that was going to just take off and would be. I mean, when we launched our website at the beginning, we thought, oh my gosh, are we prepared to take these bookings? And then and then as it kind of went, we'd have a few people call, a few people get interested, you get some people, maybe one or two that want to, and then but you couldn't fill the van that way.
Yeah.
So you had and then we did some wineries and things like that. It was plus another thing that with us adapting.
Yeah.
We weren't really advertising like we could have because we really didn't have our website where we wanted to have it.
That was a big part of it. You coming back on, I remember.
We just went through our third revamp. It is going to get slightly better. It's much better now.
Yeah.
But we have another like a phase 2 that's getting ready to come to add to it.
Nice.
And once that's done, it's going to be phenomenal.
Awesome.
And that was a big thing because when someone's looking at your website and looking at what you have to offer, and you're trying to sell all these things that we're talking about, and sometimes it's a little difficult to let everyone understand what that is. I mean, it's when you look at websites and you click through. I mean, you have a few seconds to figure out if they're only there until they get tired of it and move on to something different.
Well, you hit the back button, you go back to the Google search.
Yeah.
And then you click on the next one.
Right.
That, you know what I mean? That,
right. So
that's your competition there. Even if you get that,
Oh.
that search engine optimization and you're the first one on there, they click on your website and you're like, I don't know what this is.
And you have
back button, moving on. No, nothing personal. They don't know you.
Right, but you have only a few seconds to hold your attention, and so we wanted to build a website that really reflects the things that we have to offer, and so learning about that, and then as we started doing some of the tours and going to Kentucky, we actually we took the van down, we did some dry runs, wanted to see how things were going. We started hiring some great guides, and we kind of come to that idea that. If we were just here and let everyone come to us instead of us going to them, then that just makes a better business model. Because now we opened our boundaries from just being from Central Ohio to the nationwide, worldwide, so that they come find us. And
Yeah,
so
but that's a big that's a big move. I
It is
feel
a
like
big move.
I feel, and I think people know that. But I mean, when I think of that stuff, it's like you're still in Mount Vernon, right? You have
No.
residency, or you move completely.
No, we have a residency in it's still here in Ohio,
Right.
but we're looking at a second place in Kentucky as well.
But you're the two businesses
So
that are
this-
based
the-
here.
Yeah, that's still going to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we moved the tourism business down.
I know, but I'm saying like I don't want to make light
No,
of that.
we
I mean,
split time.
when you talk about adapting or dying, it's like one of those things. Is like, all right, so we can either stay here and focus on our primary bread and butter. This is what puts food on the table at this point. This is what is just like any other startup. If you guys are financing most of it yourself, if not all of it, you have to basically like, well, I can't just move and shut down these other things so that this can succeed. I'm saying like that's a huge thing. A lot of times there's and I'm guilty of it a lot of times too. That you get comfortable. You don't want to make that sacrifice. You don't want to uproot family. You don't want to lose your friends or your day to day. You don't want to get out of your comfort zone. The fact that you guys did that and you saw that, that's why I wanted to talk about this, because it blows me away.
I'm not going to lie, it's difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times I am the primary person in this business. I run the operations, the day-to-day operations and Rolling Barrel Tours.
Right.
I mean, like I said, I have a wonderful staff. I mean, I can't speak any higher of the people, especially my assistant Beverly, and she will bend over backwards. I mean, I've told her to clock off. I'm like, girl, you got to clock off. Get off this
Is
clock.
she down in Kentucky?
And she is in Kentucky.
Yeah.
She lives
Yeah.
down in Versailles. So
Okay.
that's just outside of Lexington.
Okay.
But she does an amazing job. Her bourbon knowledge, I'm telling you, oh my gosh, it's absolutely amazing. So one thing that Mark and I are doing, because we continue to educate ourselves, we are going to bourbon school. And that's what it's called. It's offered.
There's a lot of people that want to go to that school, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do they offer scholarships?
Have you
or-
seen my Facebook post on it?
No, I haven't, but now I need to look at
It's
it.
cool. It's pretty cool. So it's offered once a month, and after 12 months, what's really great is that it's just like a building course. So I'm in March will be my third, but what I'm really totally excited about is like starting in September is all palate training. So we're going to actually go through all Kentucky distilleries on our palate training.
When you
And
say
then-
palate training, you're training the palate. You're learning how to basically break down what you're tasting.
So yeah, so we're going to break it down, and not only that, we're going to learn to be more of defining it. Like we're going to get to the point to
Yeah.
where it's like I taste a bourbon and I know what distillery it came from.
Like a bourbon summit. Bourbon summit,
Yeah, yeah.
So getting a little bit more in depth, taking another step past the executive bourbon stewardship and going more into the details of bourbon.
I love it. Yeah.
And so that's what we do though as a staff, and we do continue to educate ourselves and to learn more and more. I'll go to the Capital City Museum. They have an amazing bourbon room, and you just go and you learn more. I mean, sometimes a lot of this you have to self-study too. I'm going to tell you, you have to do this stuff on your own if you really want to know it and learn it and be able to talk about it. And, especially in my position where if you call me on the phone, if I tell you, oh, well, I don't know, you're going to be like, okay. So I need to be able, and the other thing is too, that I also do is the lay of the land. I go to these distilleries. I do the tours.
Right.
I go to different bars and restaurants. I learn about their menu. I learn about what they have to offer.
Yeah.
And it's great. And it's just, I don't know. I just love it down there.
I know
really
you do.
And-
What I'm saying, like what I like about what you're saying, what I think that I don't want to just breeze past this part of it, but you talk about educating yourself, and I think this is very, very relevant to what you're talking about. And I think this is where we're doing the life topic part 2 of this podcast. This is something that even in the cigar industry, no matter what your gig is, right, whatever your specialty is, when you take it from, and I'm not even talking about just hobby, but I'm saying like when you're trying to make something out of it.
Yes.
You're educating yourself about bourbon. You're educating yourself about the culinary side of it. You're educating yourself about the historical aspects of what said business is, right? So just using this as an example. You also, I think, not only is the further education is something that people don't always commit to. They get to a level of they know what they know, and then that's it. again, adapting or dying. If you stop there, someone's going to know more about that than you are. Or if you haven't refreshed in the last 2 years, so much has changed. I mean, this is an industry, especially with the bourbon, the whiskey, and everything else. Cigars the same way. It's like there's always new stuff out there. And if customers are coming to you and like, hey, I want to take a look at this distillery, and you're like, what distillery is that? Where is that? Where? I don't know. I haven't learned about this one because you're not doing all that stuff. But the other thing is that it's a 360 thing. As I look at this, is that, and I probably the trucking industry and everything else is that you have to know what's going on around you. You need to know, obviously, the regulations. You go to the nuts and bolts side of it, of like actually taking people to the distilleries and making money off of that. That's not just taking a friend there and be like, hey, let's sign up and do that. But you're also learning, and I think this is something that a lot of people fail at and people stumble upon sometimes, or they actually will trip over the hurdle, is because things are working really well and they don't realize that people's desires or people's their needs that they want out of what you're doing like this. Like, again, last time we spoke, you had a business model, you had all this stuff, and none of this other stuff really existed. You knew about it, but you weren't really educating yourself on that and what people. I think you were listening to people. You were listening to the industry. You were listening to, like, what is the customer demand? What do people actually want to do? So it's not just like, hey, the part that you're going to be, well versed on training your palate and everything like that. That is like icing on the cake, but you still need people in front of you for you to be able to talk to about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that I'm going to say that's a shortcoming a lot of times in a lot of businesses, that people will be like, I know everything. Salespeople, it's like, I know everything about the ins and outs of what I'm selling and all that stuff. Is like, yeah, you don't know how to talk to people though.
Yeah, and
that's why your sales are down.
That is important, and you have to know how to talk to people. And I think you also need to know what you want to tell them, because knowing what I know about you and where you are at in your level of bourbon drinking, there's a lot more I'm going to talk about with you than maybe somebody who's like, hey, this is my first time. I've just been starting to get into bourbon. And I kind of want to, do some tours and go here and go there. It's a completely different demographic.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, and I need to be able, one thing is, and I always feel this is so important, because when I worked behind the bar, when I was in restaurants or I was bartending, it was like, just because you know so much, you don't have to tell everybody, right?
It's a huge turnoff, by the way, for a lot of people.
Right. So just because and here's the other thing too. I believe in educating. Like, I have seen bartenders do some terrible things, and it's like, why did you do it that way? Because you had a great sales opportunity. You had a great moment to educate this person and potentially make this person somebody who wants to go back to your bar when you're working and be your regular.
That's right.
Right? So when somebody comes and asks, like, okay, for example, if somebody asks me for Elijah Craig, okay? It's like, hey, can I get a pour Elijah Craig? Based on what they just said, they're looking for the standard 94 proof Elijah Craig.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not going to look at them and go, well, which Elijah Craig do you want? I got like 7 of them behind me.
No.
But here's a sales opportunity. I'm going to pour them their 94 proof. And I'm going to verify with them. Right here, this is Elijah Craig small batch 94 proof that you want. He goes, yeah, that's what I want. Okay. So I'm going to pour that for them. While they're drinking that, I'm going to talk them into an Elijah Craig barrel proof.
Have you had the Elijah Craig barrel proof?
Yes. See? And that's what I'm going to do.
You're about to say yes.
It's pretty often.
She was about, I saw it in her eyes. She's like, yeah, why? I mean,
Yeah.
I got it.
So
I had you.
yeah, I know.
I was about
right?
to pour you one.
So do
if
you
I
have
had
it?
No, I know. I shot myself in the foot right there.
Because I'm really looking for the A120 now that it's out. I got all the other. I got the 19s. But anyway, but right there's a wonderful education. Another a sales opportunity to talk to this person.
Yeah.
And have them appreciate it. Don't make them feel stupid by going, oh well, I got 7 of them back here. Which one do you want? That's not right. That's not fair.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I really like talking to my clients. I really love talking to them. And I don't run from a script. I talk to you.
You have a conversation, which
We
I
have
like.
a conversation. During that conversation, I'm going to learn what you enjoy. I'm also going to learn how you like to travel. I've had clients who are like Disney World people. It's like, oh my gosh, we're going to go to Bourbon Country and we're going to hit as many distilleries as we can. And it's going to be bam, 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 bam. Right?
I want that fast pass.
Right. Like we're fast passing through Bourbon Country.
If you could figure that out in Bourbon Country, I get you in the front of the line. I tell you
nothing
what, that's
fast
the $1 million
in Bourbon
idea
Country.
right there.
But then, I got those people. It's like, now I'm a leisure traveler, but I have to remember not everybody's like me.
Right.
If I get to a place, I'm having a good time. I want to kick it back and have a cocktail and maybe walk about the grounds or sit here at this bench and just whatever. I want to be able to do that. So it's very important for me as your tour coordinator to understand how you like to travel. I mean, I'm happy if you want to freaking Disneyland it, we'll do it. I mean, we'll get it right there, and we'll go bam, bam, bam all day long. But if you're like more like, hey, I only like to really schedule like 2 tours. Right. Schedule like 2 tours where we have definitive times where we have to be somewhere. Then everywhere in between is kind of free. Right. It's loose.
Flexibility,
exactly.
Well, one thing you really shouldn't rush is taking your time with your bourbon. Because, I mean, you do your tasting. I hate being rushed. I mean, I've done that before, and it's like, oh, well, we got to go. I'm like, oh, man, I just really want to hang loose and enjoy this, you know? So we like doing at least 2 distilleries, but also give our clients the time to, I mean, it's their time. You know, they can relax, have an easy weekend. That's what it's supposed to be about. It's supposed to enjoy yourself, not to be rushed through everything.
Yeah, I mean, one option you can do, obviously, and again, being flexible, you can set up, like you said, you only like to do 2 tours or whatever. Mm-hmm. You can set up, I mean, hey, you guys want to do the fast pass, whatever? Like, all right, we're going to set up 8 tours. You're at the first one. But you don't want to, like, you also are working with these other places, so it's one of those things that maybe that's something that over the next year when we revisit this is that you know it's fine. Hey, you guys, you ready to go? We're ready to go. Like, well, we weren't. Or like, okay, cool. Like, I'm gonna cancel this one, but we'll hit up the next one. You know, you have that flexibility where it's like, hey, whatever you want, but then you stay flexible. It's a fine line when you're dealing with both sides. You know, you have the client, and then you have obviously the vendors that you're working with. Is that they don't also want to have you every weekend or every week coming down and saying, hey, we're canceling again, because you got to watch that part too. So, I mean, it is a fine line. I like what Doug Ruffalo said. You know, sales is not about details. It's about relationships and trust. That can be established quickly by being a listener, not an expert off the bat. You were talking about, yes, Becca, you know, about the fact that if you're an expert, if someone says about that Elijah Craig, and all you can say is there's 2 sides that I see people failing at that type of sales. Is one, you can overload them with the knowledge that you have.
Correct.
It's a turnoff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or you can almost talk down to them because of that knowledge and say, oh, is that all you want, Elijah Craig? But I have all this stuff over here. And it's like someone, you could even be talking to someone like, no, I know all that stuff too. I wanted Elijah Craig. Right. And they're not gonna like you then. Because you didn't do it, you didn't give any time to that person. You didn't give any time to that relationship. Even if it's a first impression, you did not find out what kind of person they are because you didn't ask any questions. You told them. Yeah, and that's the turnoff.
I find that in the same way when you order a drink. Say if you ordered a old fashioned, and you know you may want a rye whiskey in it, but you're not quite sure what. But you also may have an idea, but I'm like give enough time to open up for suggestion. What does the bartender recommend? What do they have there that they make it with? You know, give them a little time. You know, and then we was talking about the on the tours as well. You know, having given enough time to enjoy each tour. You know, we try to you know, we don't want someone at the end of the day be totally exhausted.
Yeah.
From what they've done, because it can be very exhausting, especially if you hit a bunch of them all in a roll.
You're on the move. You're drinking. You're talking. Right. You're learning.
By the time you get back to the hotel,
exhausting vacation, by the way.
Yeah. By the time you get back to the hotel, you're spent, and so we try to make sure everyone has enough time to recover and maybe go get a nice meal in the evening and enough time to relax. You know, it's their vacation.
It is. Yeah. It's what they want out of it.
Sure.
Trying to to heat up Becca a
Try
little
to
bit here. Yeah. Tell you you're cold over here. You're shivering. So.
I'm shivering a little bit.
Needs a
Yeah.
little more antifreeze.
Yeah.
No, I'm okay.
So,
Thank you.
I've brought this up before, and I think the adapting or dying thing is, and you guys are really, I don't want to say dancing around it, but it's people don't talk about it enough. I talk about it on the podcast a lot, and Nate, I know you have a question or you have a comment, but it is the personality types. Anytime you're in this and you're learning, like that was something I hold true to what we do in the cigar industry or in anything that we do with the podcast and stuff like that. You're not always going to make everyone happy. You need to know that. You also need to know who you are and how you address people, in my opinion. And so when you're doing something like this, and I'm breezing past again everything you said because a big part of it is learning what you need to know. You can't just do what you want to do and then people need to respond. But when you're talking to those people and they're doing all these things, you're talking about being flexible, but it's how you talk to someone. It's you have to qualify it. You have to qualify the sale. You have to do these things of they're coming to you. Obviously, if they've reached out to you in your guys' business, and this is any business, but if they walk in the cigar shop, they're obviously interested.
Right.
Whether they're like for us, it's like if there's a restaurant that they're waiting on their table on a busy night, and they're holding a pager in their hand, for the restaurant or whatever, they may not be looking to buy, but then you start talking to them. Hey, what cigars do you like? What are you looking for on this tour? Like, what weekend are you looking for? Have you been down there before? You start asking questions, and then next thing you know what kind of personality they are. They're going to tell you what they want, or they're going to be like, well, I'm not really sure. They're not like testing you. You have to basically be in that mode where it's like, I need to know what this person wants and how they actually operate so that and a lot of times, and it was funny that we've had those conversations before, and I've trained salespeople before in my past career where they felt bad about it. You're like, well, I'm just manipulating those people. And it's like, no, like this is like it's an arranged thing because they came to you. Right. This is you're not just like knocking on doors, which is the toughest part of sales. And that's like probably the toughest racket, as Nate knows. I know he's going to raise his hand, but it's something where they come to you. You want to be able to make sure that it's that whole age-old thing where it's like, sell me this pen. And there's two ways major to go about that, in my opinion, where it's like, sell me this tour, and all you do is you talk. Becca, you were joking, and we were talking about it before. It's like where you feel like sometimes anyone can kind of just like talk and talk and talk and talk, and it was like one of those things where it's like, I'm going to tell you all about the business. I'm going to tell you all about what we do. I'm going to tell you all this stuff, and the whole time they're just like, well, I was just calling to see if what dates you're available, and you're like, oh,
Right.
That we're available these dates, and they're like, okay, cool, that's not going to work for me. You're like, okay, like, it's like you completely missed it. It's like it's like, sell me this. I did a sales exercise one time where it's like not the pen, but the newer one where it's like, sell me this cell phone. You're like, oh, let me tell you about the new iPhone. It's like, it can do this. This is the megapixels. This is it. Have you seen the resolution on this and everything like that? The other aspect that you could do is like, what cell phone do you have right now? What do you like about it?
Exactly.
What don't you like about it? I mean, you're just basically building at that point, and it's not manipulation. It's not just closing the sale. I mean, that's the arrangement. That's what they came to you for. It's like, well, I really like the camera. It's like, oh, let me see that. Oh, okay. Well, if you like the camera on this, let me show you a picture on this new cell phone. And they're like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Well,
And
that's
that's
more
the key.
Relationship.
That's the key. Like when I know I talk a lot in person, and like when I get going and stuff like that, I'll talk. But
And that's common.
But when I'm on the phone with a potential client or somebody who's looking to put together a tour with my company, you're talking. I'm asking you questions and you're talking. You're telling me, and I'm getting a feel. And if you get, and one thing I really want to do is like, I don't want to necessarily be like some expert. I don't want you to be feeling like, oh, well, if I ask her this, will she think I'm stupid or something? I don't want anybody to think that.
Sure, no.
Because
no one wants
if
that.
you've never been down to bourbon country and you don't know how the land is laid out and how, because a lot of times people, even people I've talked to just in everyday life, people I know, it's like, yeah, I got down there. I didn't realize how far apart these distilleries were.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they are. And they're like scheduling their tours like
you can do
back
groupings,
to back.
but yeah, I mean. Yeah.
And some of them have missed their tours because they just could not make it there in time.
Right.
And, and I know how long a tour lasts. And even though it says it might say an hour on the website, let me tell you, that tour is going like an hour 20.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Maybe an hour and a
You
half.
say the same thing about this podcast. some weeks.
Yeah, I mean, depending on your tour guide, and I really try to allocate that. That's another reason why I really talk to you, because that's important for me to know.
Right.
Once you're done with your tour, you want to go do some shopping? Are you going to want to go to the bar? Because a lot of these distilleries now have a place where you can get a cocktail.
Well, and it's their job too as a tour guide to talk about that, right? So it's like, we're going to hit this tour up and all that stuff, and
Right.
like, hey, they were talking about this, the bar over here and the cocktails they do. I was hoping to check that out, and you're looking at your watch, and you're like, we have another tour ready to go.
And they want you to stay. They want you to stay.
Oh, yeah,
months.
that's their
They want
job.
you in the
That's
gift
their
shop,
job.
And that's why I ask you. And even, here's one thing that I always do if I'm doing a tour in the Frankfurt area.
Yeah.
Castle and Key is always last.
It can be lengthy, it sounds like.
Because people enjoy it so much.
Oh.
It is just one of those kind of places where they got this little place called Counter 17, and you can go get a cocktail, you can get a charcuterie board, you got these Adirondack chairs right by the creek, and you get there and you're like, I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Like, I'm having a great time.
And to your point, Mark, they don't want you to leave.
They don't.
Right, and that's one
They make more money off of it.
You're there longer. They want you to stay longer. That's why they're having restaurants and they're building all these expansions, and gift shops are unbelievable and beautiful grounds. So they want you to hang out. But when you got a tour, you're like, well, I gotta move on, But
Hit it, move on.
But you would try to allow enough time. I think a lot of people, one misconception about maybe they might believe that, you can go down and do some tours themselves.
Yeah.
And you can. But when it comes down to scheduling, making sure you get in, paid for, and then get your day planned out, sometimes can be very difficult because getting tours lined up, especially in the summertime when things get really busy, you might find out that you get somewhere and then there's nothing available.
Yeah.
Or you want to go have lunch someplace and the place is packed, and he's like, well, we got to have plan B. And that's one great thing about taking a tour is these things are already lined out for you ahead of time, and it goes as clockwork, and you have a guide that's very knowledgeable of what's going on in the industry, and he's riding with you and showing you you're learning things on the way, not just when you get there. The whole time. So it's a whole day experience. I think that's a big thing as well is being able to enjoy it without all the pressure of, well, I got to be here. Well, I'm not going to get this. And I mean, I had buddies of mine go down there for a bachelor's party. They got to Louisville, never went to one distillery. Got down there and they decided, well, we'll just stay in town. At the bars because they called around and all these tours are full.
And they didn't realize you need reservations.
They didn't realize it, but then it's like, I mean, they made the best of it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in Louisville. Going down Whiskey Road.
You can find a place to drink, I'll tell you that right now.
Definitely. And so, but the thing is, they didn't get to go do what they wanted to get done. So that's one nice thing about doing a tour is that it takes all that away. You don't have to worry about that. You just sit back and relax and let everybody let the planning get done. If you just want to set a budget, what you want to go do, and then everything gets filled out for you.
Is there a time, and this is relevant to the topic, and I'm curious, and this can be about anything. It can be not necessarily about rolling barrel tours, but when you talk about the topic Nate has a question. I'm sorry, I've been. A corner of my eye, I've been seeing it. Go ahead, Nate, and I'll ask my question next.
Yeah, so
he's been on his button. He's like, he was about to shut ours off, I think, at one point.
No, I never.
I know you wouldn't do that. I don't know. Go ahead, buddy.
I want to ask this question. I think I know the answer, but I want to see if you guys actually bring out the answer that I'm thinking in my head.
It's a lot of pressure.
You guys had talked about. So you guys were based here in Ohio, Mount Vernon area, and you guys had the ability to adapt to either move to Kentucky to continue this or stay local and do, like you said, the brewery district or do some of the Ohio wineries. So why did you choose to adapt and make the move down to Frankfurt? Like I said, I think I know why, but I want to ask you, like, why did you make that choice instead of staying here?
Because we want to do bourbon.
And that's what I was trying the passion.
We love bourbon. We love Kentucky. We love that whole entire region. I mean, there's so much. I mean, I don't know if people really realize how much beyond what goes in this bottle exists down there. I mean, you want to talk about passion. You could talk, I mean, even to tour guides in some of these distilleries, they have it. They love their product. They love living in Kentucky. And they love people coming. I mean, you feel, I mean, I'm telling you, Southern hospitality, I mean, you got it.
It's a thing for a reason, right? They talk about it.
It is genuine. It's genuine. It's not fake. I mean, understand that. They're not coming. They're not being nice to you. They're not being nice to you because you're there and they have to and you're paying money. They are just nice to you. They're nice to you. They genuinely want you there. They go, I mean, they talk to you. It's like, oh, is that what you're looking for? Well, here's where you can go find that. Or, hey, you know, I mean, it's customer service and beyond. I mean, these people, like I said earlier, I mean, I was really surprised. I mean, I went into Heaven Hill just to pick up a bottle of bourbon. I was just trying to get my C batch because I hadn't been able to snag one up here in Ohio. I was like, I heard that was out at the distillery. I'm going to get one.
Right.
I just stopped in. And I didn't go in there to do business. I didn't go in there with a tour. It was just me. And I walk in that door, and it was like, hey. And I'm like, oh, my gosh. I'm like, I knew her, but I only have to remember a few people at these places, whereas they see hundreds and thousands of people that come in every year. I've been in there a handful of times, and she is like, have you been? We haven't seen you in so long. And I'm just like, oh, my gosh. I was like, I didn't expect anybody to really remember me because I hadn't been in there in a while. But they do. They, you know, it's just a wonderful place to go. I mean, whether you go with me or just go down on your own, I mean, just go. I mean, it's a great time.
Well, I think there's a cross there, and I think that's the relationships, and it is like partially relationships, but it's also the livelihood.
It is.
You have to, you gotta like take that. It's not a filter it out. They're not just being nice to you because this is their livelihood. They are at first. I mean, this is just what they like to do, hopefully. But you also can't take it personally if they like, you know, oh, this person is doing their job, because there's a mix.
I mean, there may very well be. I mean, I've always had whether I've been down there as a tourist, because I mean, if you really think about it, we were tourists in the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we went and did. We went to Kentucky and we went and visited wineries, distilleries. I mean, you know.
Yeah.
But that's what we were in the beginning. But, you know, yeah, I do have a business there, and maybe that's the reason why maybe some people remember me.
And that's okay, though.
But that's okay. And even when I was going down there before I had a business, I felt so welcomed.
Yeah. Well, my take on the answer to your question is, you know, at the beginning, I think we had intended to take our guests down. And so we weren't really looking at any other things. So, I mean, you can do the wineries and the breweries here in Ohio. And that was going to be kind of a filler, you know, because that could be done almost every day of the week if you wanted to. But our real passion was to take people down because, I mean, we shared this with our families and you know, when we got married down there in Frankfurt, is a beautiful gardens, and I was really, really happy to bring people down to show them. Because we've been going for a few years.
You want to share it.
We want to share it. We want to share the things that we found because we love exploring. We love finding new places, new things, new experiences. And I think we brought, when we got married, we brought all of our family down, and we really was happy to share that with them.
Absolutely.
And so once with that idea in mind, when we talked about getting into doing the tours and doing the bourbon country, I mean, really, at the one point, we just was doing wines and stuff. We weren't really into the distilleries, but we found once we started exploring that aspect of it, and then also with bourbon becoming a very, very popular spirit and having a big comeback, and so we thought, well, you know, what a great thing to maybe be a part of that.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, with, you know, to make the move. it wasn't quite what we thought that was going to happen, but once we did do it, we were very happy because it's opened up a lot of lines for people all over the country to come see what we're wanting to share, not just Central Ohio. So to answer the question, it's kind of adapting, like we've been talking about, because we're what we were doing and trying to develop tours to go down was getting to be very difficult. You get a few here, a few there, and trying to get a whole 15 people on the van. It was very, I know that happens. You can get a tour bus or something like that. They make that happen. But once we got down to Frankfurt and we said, well, everyone come here, meet us here. Yeah. And we will take you out for a great weekend. And you can be from anywhere, from any walk of life. And we want to show you what we have to offer. So, like I said, that little change, making that leap.
Yeah.
You when we come up with the idea, it's like, well, what do we do? What do we do? And I said, we have to go where the customers want to go.
Absolutely.
Instead of just trying to convince people, because see what happens with a lot. Unless you're into bourbon or you're into this type of culture, people from the outside looking in, maybe they haven't tried it, maybe they don't know what it's all about.
Yeah.
And you're trying to show them. And, maybe they don't have no interest in it. But if you have interest in going to distilleries, going to travel down there, before you even pick up the phone, you're already interested in it. And so it made total sense to do it. And one other thing is what was great about we partner with the hotel down there and work with them. And so we had a destination. So, and then we work with several hotels in the area. You don't have to be, anybody can pick which one they want to go. But we once we got that laid out, where we can actually have a kiosk and a place of reference for everyone to go, then that made a world of difference. And so, and the thing is, not just Frankfurt. We're working with other towns like Bardstown, Lexington, Louisville, and trying to, and even though we're based out of Frankfurt, but Frankfurt's a central place. You can be any place around in bourbon country within an hour. Mm-hmm. And that's what's great about that location. Plus, it's a small town. If some people don't like the big city, for me, I'm from a little town. And I when I go to Louisville, I get a little bit overwhelmed, but because it's out of my comfort zone, or some big towns. But Frankfurt, you can walk up and down the streets, everyone's friendly to you, and that's one reason I like it. But that's just me. But
let me ask you this here.
I do want to add though.
Oh, go ahead.
Even though our company is based in Frankfurt, we do go anywhere for pickups and drop-offs. Yeah. So, that's where we keep our vehicles, just because that's very convenient for us, and we do have a safe place to keep those down there. But, if you're staying in Louisville, we'll go pick you up in Louisville.
Yeah.
And we take you back to Louisville, Lexington, Bardstown, no matter where you're staying.
You have to accommodate, whatever their situation is.
Yeah, so it's not like, I just want to make it clear that you don't have to stay in Frankfurt.
I got to ask.
You can.
So
but
when I deferred to Nate for that, it's funny, and there's, I love the feed. I love we have two fans that I have a great spot in my heart for both these guys, because I do love them both, and I also love the banter back and forth, and I love the honesty from both of them, and Bobby Hirschman, I mentioned earlier on the podcast, for the support and everything like that. Every week, and he actually brings up a good point. Sometimes he's more cigar heavy and everything else, and it's something I like about this podcast. And I do want to address this part of it at this point before I ask my last question for part two here. And it's funny, Bobby Crow actually beat me to it on the feed if you guys are watching the Facebook feed. But, we do things differently every week, and that's what I love about this podcast. It depends on the guests, and it's something, and I listen to other people's podcasts, and there's some that I really am just, I can't turn it off. Like, I will keep, if I'm driving listening, I will delay where I'm going if I want to hear it. Yeah. And if it's something that like that guest that week, I'm just like, well, I'm not really into it. You know what I mean? It's like that's what I love about this podcast, and I do want to address that part is that if you're cigar heavy, if you're topic heavy, if you're bourbon heavy, sometimes it's like you listen to it and you're just like, I liked last week's better. I like next week's better. I like this one better. Can you do more like this? I mean, we had Eric on earlier, and he's just like, do this, like bring back Jake. I love the bourbon conversation. I love all this stuff. It's because it's something for everyone. I hope everyone takes something from it. But Bobby Crow actually beat me to that what I was going to ask, and this is kind of open. Okay. It's not just about Rolling Barrel Tours. It's not about anything else in particular. But when it's the adapt or die thing, Give me something, and Nate, you can chime in if you want. We're gonna close it out on this. I think is that give me something where the adapt or die mentality, hindsight's 20/20, where you didn't adapt and you learned something from it.
Okay.
People don't like these types of questions. I'm going to tell you that right now. I'm not going to let it go dead air.
No,
People don't like these types of questions. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
A couple. Like, so there are times where you just like you stay strong with what you believe is right.
Right.
And I've talked about it before in this podcast. I'll give you two sides of it, right? So one personal relationship is that I've been in relationships before where it's like this is what is right, this is what you need to keep doing, and everything else. And when it came down to it, it was sacrificing quality of life because you're not just too stubborn. That happens a lot. You're too stubborn to move on or to evolve or admit you're wrong or whatever it is. There's times where I've done that, and there was a time where I was at my previous career that I was just kind of rolling through it, and I didn't know what else I wanted to do with my life. I wasn't happy, but I just kept showing up to work, and I changed without realizing it until after the fact. And that was a situation where after a 12-year career somewhere, is that I was let go for the first time in my life. And it was a surprise to me, but when I looked back at it, I was like, completely makes sense. At the time, and looking at it now, it was either them or me, and I let it be them because I was too comfortable doing what I was doing, and I was afraid of that change. And there was a point in a personal relationship that I had the same type of experience. So again, now at the age I'm at right now and the stage I'm at right now is that I don't want that to happen again. I want to make sure that I'm always listening to the surroundings of the situation. I'm always listening to not only like my emotions or anything like that, but the other person or the other party, or if it's a company, if it's a person or whatever, is that I need to continue to be the person that's listening and also driving the conversation, that if things aren't going well and things are not succeeding the way I want it to go, is that you have to either go back to the drawing board or you have to sit down and literally like just start figuring out how can I make this better for me first and foremost, so that that's better for the other party also, but also is this still a good situation or not?
Right.
Oh boy. So okay.
This is the true part of part two.
Right.
Here.
This is.
I
So
can go if you guys need more time.
okay. Well, I'm gonna like really answer this very honestly and truthfully.
That's the hope.
And I've got some years behind me. I'm in my 40s now. So
Say that again. I don't know if they. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
So I've hit a couple milestones in my life. Here's one thing that I will say about myself, and this is actually a very hard question for me because I am not afraid of change, and I have a lot of adaptability.
It's good.
And so when I look now, not that I haven't been stagnant in life, not that I haven't been complacent, because I definitely have those moments. If I look back, I can see some places where some things need to be done.
Right.
But I've never been one to shy away from change. Especially in any situation, like whether it's been in I was in the workforce, maybe before I owned my own business for a very long time, when a manager or somebody above me came to me and said, hey, let's take a look at the situation. okay, yeah, it's been brought to my attention, so maybe I do need to change that. But it was never hard for me to do. So, I mean, I guess I'm a very fortunate person because of that. So, I mean, yeah, so it's like a really hard question because it's not, I've never been afraid to change direction.
You feel like you've always adapted.
I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Like I could change direction like 10 times a day. I mean, ask him. It's like, he's like, what the hell just happened?
We don't have enough time for
He's
that
like,
one. No.
You're just,
That's after our hours.
I just changed my mind. Okay. But I mean, I have been fortunate in that realm that even like, with my business, my current business now.
Yeah.
I mean, when I realized certain things weren't working, even though things are going pretty good now, we still hit moments where it's like, hey, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like, pivoting or change direction even currently now. And I imagine we will continue to do that. I mean, we're a very young business, right? But it doesn't scare me. And I'm okay with it. Mm-hmm. Like, I will adapt.
Okay.
Yeah. Him, on the other hand.
Mark, you.
I am different.
How so?
I'm not. I like to stick to what's comfortable, I guess you'd say sometimes.
No, you're preaching the choir there with me.
Okay.
Man.
So the thing is, I know what works and what I might think that works, just like we was mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
I've been with the same construction company for over 25 years.
Okay.
So I've always stuck it out with them, and high and low, and good and bad, and always done well.
Yeah.
Because I was perseverant with them, and so I guess I'm kind of, taking a leap. I mean, even with our tour company, it's a little bit of a leap for me. But the thing is,
it's out of your comfort zone.
Well,
I can see it just the way you said that.
But I enjoy it. I mean, I enjoy it. But I also like to hold on to the old ways of things sometimes. Now, granted, things change, even if I don't.
Goddamn right.
So when I look at it,
yeah,
even though I'm holding on to something that might be, what I know is true, but as the world changes, then it really does, and you have to open your eyes a little bit to it. Like I said, even in the trucking industry and the big changes that goes on there. I work local construction, and we stay here in Ohio and things like that, but them things always evolve, and what I always think that's going to do well changes.
Yeah.
So, with the way things are, we've had driver shortages where it's hard to get anyone to come to work. Lord, just even come to work. And
people don't like to work sometimes.
That's with the trucking company.
And so with the trucking company, I've had some frustrations with
again coming from the moving and storage industry. I know a lot about that.
And so when you look outside and your truck's still sitting there, and the guy was supposed to have been there hours ago.
Doesn't make much money sitting there, does it?
No. So it's very frustrating trying to get a good quality employees. So where I never really experienced that in the 25 years that I've been in this, I've had people, well, they can quit, but they always like, well, I'll give you a couple weeks notice. And it's just now they just don't show up. So
then you have to make the move.
Then I go jump in it for the day.
And he has.
So
I have.
He has headed out with no sleep, 2:00 in the morning.
It's
crazy.
It's that type of thing wears down on you because you're trying to keep something going, but no one else is putting out any effort to even want to keep a job. So, but with that said, that's the aspects kind of changed with me. I think for me, I've been in it for a long time. I've done it, since 94, 93. So, I enjoy doing it, but as I'm getting older too, I mean, I like to be in a point where I try to be, is just managing it and not driving,
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, it's kind of a switch gears for me. I'm kind of,
which is out of your comfort zone.
Kind of cutting back some of that. But, the thing is, everybody, you got to change with things, like you said, adapt. And I'm continuing to keep the trucking going for a little while longer. But, going into doing the tours, it's fun. I mean, we have a great time doing it. And I don't really have to, rely on so many other people, whether they're going to show up or not. So it's a transition. It's a transition, and then so she adapts a lot quicker than I do.
Yeah,
but I told him
this conversation reminds me of something. I'm sorry. There's a song that I love, and it's the title of the song is called "A Woman's Got a Mind to Change." I don't know. You probably have never heard of it, but the first lyric of it is they say the only sure thing in life is death and taxes, and as the song goes on, it's the third thing is a woman's got a mind to change. Those are the three things you can always count on. And this is what this reminds me of, as this is the fourth week having a woman as a guest, and as I'm listening to this conversation, is that I couldn't shake this song that I always loved. Is that it's like you got two. Well, you guys would laugh. It's actually the Bacon Brothers. It's Kevin Bacon and his brother.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, I'm not kidding. Well, you're gonna laugh at that, but it's actually a great song. But it was something that I'm listening to this, and it's like you got two guys on the panel that everyone's seeing here, and we're both kind of like I feel what Mark's saying. I was like, yeah, I don't really like change either, and fear of the unknown. I'm thinking is like always scares me, and then the lady on the panel is like, yeah, I have no problem with that. I'm like, that's what I'm thinking of. Right. Is that the only three things in life are death, taxes, and a woman's got a mind to change, and you don't have any problem with it. And it's not a negative. It's actually, I'm envious of it, is because I would love to be able to be like that. It's like, you know what? No problem. We'll just keep changing. I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't, I need to reboot after something like that.
If it was up to me, we'd never move a piece of furniture in a house ever.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. All right, Nate, what do you got, man?
So one of the things I was thinking, struggle can create adaptability. Failure can ruin adaptability. And
I like that.
The reason I say that, so in my first career out of college, I got in that career. I was in that career for almost 8 years. And I could have stayed with it. I could have been comfortable. I just didn't like it. So I made a change, a very drastic change. I went from doing toxicology research to being a cigar rep. And then being a cigar rep didn't work out. That failure then made me very cautious of change after that. Because after that, I was like, okay, who's going to give me an opportunity? And I took the first opportunity that came along, and anytime opportunity potentially rears its face to get back into an industry that I had a passion for and still have a passion for, that failure still is in the back of my mind.
Oh, yeah.
And so sometimes that failure in the past makes me appreciate the comfort that I have now, but also at the same time prevents me from adapting and taking something that follows that passion.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's a powerful point, is that, it's all joking aside with what I was saying about that song and everything like that, is that adaptability is not something that is always given. It's something that you learn, and something like that. Nate, you said that same thing with me. It's what I used to in my 20s in that previous career where I was just kind of doing it and everything else, and it was a bit of the fear of the unknown, but it was that a lot of people struggle with. I don't care if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. I know 60-year-olds that literally tell me, I don't know what I want to do when I grow up. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's a thing, because everyone doesn't really know. I mean, you just roll with it sometimes, and I think that the reason I like this topic tonight for you guys, I've already said it before earlier on in the podcast, is that I am absolutely blown away, and I hope the takeaway for a lot of people that have listened to this podcast tonight is, and one of the reasons I love this podcast is you don't really know what you're walking into, because we could have easily done like an interview like, hey, tell me about Rolling Barrel Tours. Like, what are we doing and all that stuff. And it's like, no, it's effective. It's great, if you're doing it. But I like that I would buy from you guys. I would sign up with you guys, because what I knew back in May of last year versus what I have known after this conversation when Beck and I spoke on the phone, and she's telling me all the changes that have been made and what you're doing now, that actually, in my opinion, is more impressive than maybe even you two give yourself credit for. You know, because it's almost like, no, this is just what we did. Outside looking in, someone that has touched base back last year, and almost a year later, touching base now and seeing that, the credibility level goes way sky high. And I don't think people realize that all the time, that when you do that adaptation, when you evolve, and when you try to grow, the level of activity and the enthusiasm that goes into that, that's what would make me a customer to a business that I'm looking at. Is that the last time I talked to you, yeah, this is what we're doing. This time I talked to you and you're like, yeah, we can still do that, but this is what we're doing now because we learned from all of this, and now we're really we're starting to hit a stride. That's impressive, and it shows a level of trust that a lot of people don't realize that's of value to people.
You know, one thing that I really, and I think, you know what, luckily, I'm just going to say luckily so far, out of all the tours we've ran, and like knock on wood, I haven't had a single complaint.
Right.
Anybody being upset about anything, and responses. And even though I can't quite still get some of those people to write reviews for me, which I would absolutely love if they would.
That's any business.
They will sit there and go, we had the best, amazing time. And it shows, because most of my business is referral.
Yeah.
I get a lot of
Word
referrals.
of mouth is the most popular thing out there.
And it is the most popular. And let me tell you, here's the thing. We love what we do. Okay, listen, when I used to be a server in a restaurant,
right,
for that 6, 7 hour, 8 hour shift, however long I was in there, and those tables, that was my table, that was my house, and I was your host. 3 times in my server career, I literally had people look at me. I would say, hey, thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you. And they'll go, well, thank you for having us. And they're like looking at me. Then they're like, wait a minute. We're at a restaurant.
Yeah.
I was able to make people feel so comfortable and so much at home. And as a server and bartender, to have somebody say that to me,
it's huge.
Was huge.
Huge.
I was like, oh my gosh, I got them to feel like they were in my house.
Yeah.
Like I had invited them over. And and that's what I do. Even in my home, if you come into my house, as soon as you walk in, you're going to have a drink in your hand. You're going to have something. We're like, hey, would you like to have this or this? And, and that's how I want my tours to be. I want you coming off of my tour and being like, that was amazing. That was amazing. And now I'm going to go tell, Tom and Susie and Jack and Joe and whoever. It's like, hey, you want to go to Bourbon Country? Here's how you go to Bourbon Country.
They're telling people, they just may not be on Yelp about it. They're telling people, don't worry about that.
And I know they're telling people because when they call me and they tell me, they go, well, this person just did a tour with you, and they said they had a great time, and so we want to talk about having a tour with you too.
Absolutely.
So, a lot of my business is referrals. And let me tell you something. Some people, maybe they get a little freaked out or something because they're thinking, oh, wow, I can't afford this. This is not something I can do. Yes, you can. Because I'm going to tell you, there is some things out there. There are some in some people's budgets. That's not even in my budget. I'm putting a tour together right now that is so amazing and so not in my budget.
Right.
I'm just going to tell you. It's like, oh, my gosh.
But as a salesperson, as a business owner, you got to make it available because everyone's coming from different aspects.
And that's one of those outliers. It's one of these very unique kind of clients who has this type of income to be able to do this. And I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
You want to do this and that, and you can have the ability to do it. Wonderful. But we could put together about any kind of tour on about any budget.
Yeah.
And still have a spectacular time.
Love it.
We can.
Love it. We
could do it. We have 2 different ways to do it. We could do it in a big group. We got a big transit van, so we could do it on a group. And that's really economical because we could kind of spread that cost out. But, we also have a Suburban XLT that we do for our more intimate experiences. If it's a couple or maybe like 2 to 4 people.
Yeah.
And, that's a little bit different clientele for that. But, we do have so many options.
Options seem to be endless.
They are endless, and we can work with any budget. Any reasonable budget. we can do that and
Good.
show you a wonderful time. You're going to see things in bourbon country you can't see on your own. And I'm not saying that as a like I told you earlier, things I've learned from my own tour guides is like, I didn't even know that was there. It's like,
I'm hearing the passion, which I love about that. That's going to translate.
Yeah, and one thing I like to add about it, and she's not going to brag on herself, but she does put a lot of time. We talked about, a little bit of sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
She goes down Kentucky 3-4 days a week at a time, talks to people, lines these things up, and she's not home. And she puts out the time and effort to go and find these things and make them happen.
Yeah,
and has such a passion in doing it. And so it takes a lot because she comes back pretty tuckered out. After
as one
she goes,
would. Yeah, absolutely.
Goes down, spends days and days with meetings and talking to different people and lining up different opportunities, because really most of these tours and these things, experiences you're going to see is behind the scenes. And so it takes a lot to get that organized, get people relationships built with the distilleries, with the horse farms, with the restaurants. And so she puts so much time in it. And so she sacrifices quite a bit, I have to say.
I love it.
And of course, I'm taking the kids to school and making sure they get to the piano lessons and things like that.
Making sure the other two businesses are going well.
Yeah, because I do the trucking and I farm and so maintain the family and
you guys make me sick because you just breeze over the hard work. You're just like, so we do all this stuff, and I haven't slept in 8 days, but it's just whatever. I want to leave it. All right, so my
yeah, I agree
we
with
do the best we can with it, though.
That's what shocks me.
There's some days, I'm telling you, I've had people. I'm not going to deny it. Okay, I do love my job.
Clearly,
I do love my job.
Clearly,
let me tell you though. Sometimes there's these behind the scene things that people just don't see, like some of the meetings that I have and stuff like that aren't as much fun. And
it's still a job.
But it is still a job. But I do appreciate it. I love the people that I've met. I love the relationships I have formed, and I really do love bringing that to the customer. It would break my heart if somebody got off one of my tours and said I had a terrible time. I'd be like, oh my gosh, how did we fix this? Because how did
come
you
back
have a
next
terrible
weekend?
time?
I'll see you next weekend.
I'm like, do you want to hop in my Jeep? We're going to go out personally, have a good time.
Right.
Because I don't know. Like I said, I haven't had that happen yet. Like nobody's.
You
gonna,
will.
You
will. I'm telling you this right now. You will.
I know it will.
Sorry to break. I'll be the one to break your heart right now. You're going to have that happen.
I know it's going to happen. But let me tell you.
Not because anything you did. I'm just saying that's how this works.
That's going to be I will probably. You don't understand. I will run that through my head.
Oh yeah.
And I will really try to make that right, though.
But you have to always remember, and I'll leave it at this: is that you always have to remember that it's a numbers game when you're doing this type of thing.
I understand.
You know what I mean? You're not going to make everyone happy, and that's if you try to make everyone happy, whether it be, especially let's stay focused on business. If you try to make everyone happy, that will absolutely just drive you to your grave. You won't. Right. And sometimes Becky, you were in the serving industry, you were in the bartending industry. You get people that would leave a review or a comment card or say something as they're walking out of the restaurant, and you're just like, I don't know what to do here. I did everything I could. I don't know how to make that person happy, and that does happen. That's the numbers game, and that's why you look at the referral rate. You look at these things, and it's like if you're at a high referral rate, if you have a high customer satisfaction rate, that's the true point of it. Is you cannot make everyone happy. First of all, there are people that are just unhappy and they want to do that. But there's also people that they're not going to use you again, and that's fine. It's you have to keep learning from that. That's the adapting or die thing, but it doesn't mean to sacrifice everything that you're about just to make every person happy. And one of the things you guys were talking about, and this is something that we've talked about on the podcast before, is that I annoy people with gym check-ins, and I've been doing it now for 7 years now. I get Facebook memories of 6-7 years ago I checked in at my last gym, and it was this focus thing. This is my mantra. It's actually on the BS band is the word focus. And this morning my check-in was, and it's interesting because I didn't have the topic until we talked later. And listening to this part, one of the things that resonates with me, and I'm going to leave you guys with this, is that it's give everything you have and then give more. It's exhausting. But that's what it's about. That's the adapting or dying. It's just keep plugging away. Keep growing. Keep doing this. Take all of that as like the external stuff, take it internally, but don't let it destroy you. Take what you need to, filter it out, and then give more. Do it until you can't do it anymore. And then relax for a second and reflect. Meditate, take a day off, whatever it is, and then go back at it. And that's what I love about it. That's what I've learned from you guys tonight is, with your business and everything else, you guys out there listening, I really appreciate it. I mean, this is fantastic. Thank you to the sponsors. I mean, Tinderbox at Easton, Altadis, BS Cigar Company, Rolling Barrel Tours. Thank you guys for being here. We definitely need to share this on the community page. We're going to share it on the podcast page. You guys, please interact. Go back, listen to some of these comments and reach out to some of these people, because there's people that want to do this stuff, and it's like you can send a message out there. But to your point, guys, is that it's all about the conversation. And if there's someone that's not really digging it, that's fine. For the people that are, capitalize on that. That's how you grow. That's how you continue to do it. That's how you adapt. And you're always listening to everything. And you always sometimes have to put a filter on it. Yeah. That's part of the fun. And when I say fun, it's annoying as shit sometimes. But that is part of the fun. So, guys, thank you very much. Thank you for the E.H. Taylor.
You're welcome.
I can't wait to see pictures from the first Taylor tour.
Oh, my God.
I can't wait.
It's going to be great.
Riding with Taylor. Thank you guys very
We
much.
have a teaser coming.
I can't
next
wait.
week.
Share it on the community page. Absolutely.
Oh,
guys,
sure.
Thank you very much. Episode 107, part 2. Guys, tune in next week, Wednesday, the 4th of March. We got Pat Byrne coming on to debut the Bua Irish whiskey. You guys need to try it sometime. I know you're bourbon, but, I mean.
No, we like Irish whiskey. Yeah.
We like
Especially
whiskey.
him.
We like whiskey.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you.